Fair warning, going to be a bit of a rant here tonight, quite frankly. I want to read to you from an article here from the Washington Post, and then I want to put things in their proper context because I want to just start here before I go any further. Article says Americans are having too few kids. The GOP made the problem worse, which really is not properly stated here. And this is part of the problem before we go any further. All right. By someone named Catherine Rampell, although she should be called Catherine Ramble. Americans aren't having enough babies. Now, you see the first thing she says, Americans aren't having enough babies. Aren't having enough? Who says that we should be having any? I'm saying that for a reason. Because she's saying Americans aren't having enough babies. So she has the expectation that we should be having children, okay? And not just children, we should be having a certain number of them. Got it. Ironically, pro-life politicians might be making the problem worse. Oh, it went from they are to they might be. Yeah, because when you get into the details, here comes the devil. U.S. fertility rates hit a record low in 2023, the federal government reported last week. The average American woman is now expected to have just 1.6 births. So this is what happens when you have Nazi feminist psychopaths who go into journalism. The average American woman is now expected to have just 1.6 births over her lifetime. Who says we're expecting them to have any? There's the first thing. The narcissistic ego trip starts right there. Nobody said they expect you to have any, except the government and your newspaper that needs people to buy them. But by the way, yeah, nobody asked you to have anything. Just saying. The average American woman is now expected to have just 1.6 births over her lifetime based on age-specific birth rates last year, well below the fertility rate needed for the native-born U.S. population to replace itself, 2.1 lifetime births per woman. Interesting, coming from a newspaper that values immigrants far over native-born citizens. That's been the case consistently since 2007, but it's only getting worse. By the way, doesn't help when you're making things up as you go along, just saying. Gives you a graph about how the U.S. fertility rate just hit a record low. So there's reasons for that. Why should you care about the baby bust? A couple of reasons. First, Americans' own preferences. They're having fewer kids than they say they want. This doesn't mean anything, but okay. Recent Gallup polling data says the Americans believe the ideal number of kids for a family to have is 2.7. In fact, last year, the share of respondents who said 3 or more kids is ideal reached its highest level since 1971, 45%. Even asked about their own specific family desires, American teenage and adult women have for decades reported the number of kids much higher than actual fertility rates. Did you notice that she doesn't say a word about the men? Now, there's my point. The Washington Post, which is owned by Jeff Bezos, at one time the richest man in the world before Elon Musk, the other richest man in the world, overthrew him. And Jeff Bezos, a man who cheated on his wife so that he could take up with a single mom from Venezuela or wherever. This is his newspaper. What I'm telling you is that, yeah, he makes alpha money, but he's a beta brain. He's only an alpha economically. In literally every other aspect of his life, he's a hoe-built beta. And these are the people that he hires. With his billions of dollars, and this is who he hires. And this is what he has them put out. This is a guy who's made a bunch of money because he resents masculine men because, quite honestly, Jeff has always been awkward, nerdy, geeky, and rather than seeing that as something that he overcame and make peace with it, he is now angry with other males because he's never really been accepted from a masculine standpoint. If Jeff Bezos woke up tomorrow morning working at Home Depot, he would be at the bottom of the social totem pole. And he is. The only thing that puts him any different is how much money he's made. Remove the money and he goes right back to where he was. And that's the truth. He wouldn't have any females around him at all. And he knows it. Goes on to say here, policymakers track other measures indicating whether Americans are meeting their life goals. Now, you notice she keeps saying Americans, but then when she doesn't say men, she just says Americans and then goes to women. Why did her editor not bring her into the office and say, if you can't write an article without being a nakedly prejudiced misandrist, you need to go to work for the National Enquirer? Because this isn't news and this is not analysis. This isn't even good propaganda. This is just garbage. In a time when we need to have salient, look it up, entirely accurate and reliable information so we can make balanced, rational decisions. And those of you buying stuff from Amazon, well, here's where your money's going. Policymakers track other measures, including whether Americans are meeting their life goals. Example, home ownership, financial security, physical health. Desired family size certainly belongs on the list too. That is, the objective should never be forcing more women to become moms or to have more kids, but rather helping them achieve the family size they want. Now, did you see that? The objective should never be forcing more women to become moms. Why didn't she say forcing more Americans to become parents, or more women to become moms and more men to become fathers? Did you notice what she's doing there? That when it comes to children, they want to claim children when it's convenient and then disown or divorce themselves from having children when it's not convenient, but the men must always be responsible. Now, the women can't be forced to do anything, but the men can be forced to do everything. And then you wonder why it is that the men have said, yeah, no more kids for us. No more kids for us. This misandrist that they have writing this nakedly repulsive individual, and I am not overstating it, this is the problem. She's the problem. And those who go along with that mindset, that's the problem. Now we get to the real issue, which Jeff Bezos and his friends are very concerned about. The second reason, cold, hard economics. Actually, that's the first and last reason. As other countries have discovered, a population that fails to replace itself can face serious challenges. Pray tell. For instance, all else being equal, a shrinking workforce can lead to stagnant or declining living standards because workers power the economy. Damn! Oh, you mean Jeff Bezos can't buy yet another yacht for his side chick because he wants to be able to go get a chick down in Venezuela while the workers at his warehouse can die from heat and heat stroke and overworked. Yeah, workers power the economy. Likewise, a shrinking contingent of young people means fewer workers are available to care for the growing elderly population and pay for its retirement benefits. Pay for its retirement benefits. Yeah, because you need the corporations, folks like Jeff Bezos, to actually pay for that. Already, the typical American senior receives more Social Security and Medicare payments than they paid into the system. As the ratio of retirees to working age Americans grows, this problem will worsen. I want you all to understand what this sentence here means because Miss Misandrist Catherine Ramble did not put this sentence in its proper context. I have been criticized, although less so in recent years, by individuals who have not liked the fact that I point out how the young are routinely exploited by the elderly and the old. When Jason says these old niggas, and you can dislike it all you want to, it doesn't change anything.
And deal with it, nigga.
But the problem is that as young people, understand something. When I say they spent all the wealth, think about that for a few moments. When they say that they receive more Social Security and Medicare benefits than they put into the system. So if they tell you that they're entitled to their Social Security, actually, no, they're not. Because if they were only able to withdraw what they put in, If they only were able to, if the old folks today were only allowed to withdraw the amount that they themselves put in, it would only be a few years of payments, and then it's off to be a Walmart greeter. So what this means is that you are making up the shortfall, which is the majority of it. You, the young who are working, are paying for benefits of folks who stopped working a long time ago and did not put in nearly as much as you will be required to put in, even though your dollar is worth a tenth what theirs was, and your house is going to be costing you 5 times what it cost them. She doesn't put that in its proper context either. Well, no, because that would make you start having difficult thoughts. She says that statement and then refuses to put it in its proper context, even though she knows what the proper context is. As I said, this is beyond propaganda. This is garbage. She goes on to say here that, in fact, the problem is already worse than government numbers suggest. The standard actuarial forecast for Social Security assume a higher U.S. fertility rate than we're on track to have. They project we'll revert to near replacement level fertility rates in the years ahead, despite decades of data well below that. In other words, those dire forecasts for when Social Security might go broke are likely too optimistic. Declining birth rates are not a U.S.-specific phenomenon. We're actually doing a little bit better than most other high-income countries. For now. For the most part, those policies have had little success at boosting birth rates, including in countries with more egalitarian gender norms. So in other words, yeah, it's falling apart for everybody there, by the way. They're still worth adopting, in my view, and you mean in your opinion, to improve the lives of those who have or wish to have children. Some might also prove more effective with better design. This is what happens when you pay some whacked out social media Nimrod to write articles. They say garbage. They say nonsense. They say idiocy. She collects a little meager paycheck and then come back and regurgitate it. All while ignoring the obvious that her and Jeff Bezos and all the powers that be are trying to cover up and camouflage what the real issue is. Women and children are an expense for men. Women and children cost men. Men have to carry the overwhelming amount of that burden. If the family dissolves, and 80%, actually 90% of the time, Jason, did you say 90%? Oh, hell yeah. 90% of the time, it is the females who dissolve the family, and that is whether you're talking about married or baby mamas. Remember, 90% of all breakups are initiated by females. Doesn't matter whether you're dating. Doesn't matter whether she gets pregnant and unmarried. Doesn't matter whether she's pregnant and married. 90% of relationships are ended by the females. That includes the females who run around chasing so-called alphas. Well, when you consider that, what is a man's incentive to form some permanent binding agreement or some binding situation under those circumstances when 9 times out of 10 his life experience has shown him, wait a minute, the females are going to back out and I'll be left holding the bag. Now that's the part that Miss Catherine Misandrist and none of these other people are going to discuss, is that part right there. What's a man's incentive to form a permanent situation or attachment or get into a permanently bonding or binding situation when 9 times out of 10, no one's going to insist that the person he got into it with is going to be bound to it also? That's the problem. And everyone has gotten together united in the job of attempting to gaslight men and tell us that, oh, well, that's not really happening. Problem, you can only fool the people for a short amount of the time. Eventually, enough of them wake up, and then they just stop going for your bull crap altogether. And they just say, you know what? I don't care what happens to your system. You're doing what's best for you, even if it's at our expense. I'm going to do whatever is in my power that's best for me, even if it's at your expense, even if it's at the expense of your economy, even if it's at the expense of your nation. The bottom line is that men have backed out of getting married because women have been given control of ending things. There's the problem. If you all want me to sum this up in a nutshell, for the men and the women listening, if you want to know where the problem originates, women have been given by the system, by the state, women have been granted dictatorial powers to end things. Now they've weaponized it. So they're going around looking for men to victimize. Well, now the men have decided, okay, well, if they're going to give you unfair, prejudicial treatment to end things, we won't have to worry about ending it if I don't start it. So what do you know? The men are not popping the question because the women are in charge of divorce. The women have put themselves in charge of unfair divorce. So the men have said, well, you know what? Forget about marriage then. The women have put themselves in charge of destroying a marriage. So the men have put themselves in charge of not initiating one. And the women have put themselves in charge of killing the children via abortion. So the men have put themselves in charge of not having any births. So you have sickos like Catherine Ramble and psychos like Jeff Bezos, and I'm not speaking out of turn. People have died in his warehouses while he sits around sipping champagne with his mistresses. If that's not psychopathic behavior, then there is no definition of it. So they're sitting around furiously trying to figure out how to get the men back on the plantation, because the bottom line is that you need the men to overextend themselves and replenish these numbers. But it's not enough to replenish the numbers. Somebody got to take care of these damn kids when they get out there. And the men, without the men in the equation, it falls apart. It disintegrates. So you got to figure out how to get the men involved. And then she writes an article that simply talks about how the women are going to run it. So you have to understand, when you're dealing with an incompetent buffoon like Catherine Ramble and Jeff Bezos, they're very good at cranking out garbage and sewage. They're not very good strategic thinkers. They're not even trying to be polite in what they're saying. Not a great place to be. I would like to go a little bit further with it here. Now, you all know I'm a big fan of Professor Scott Galloway. Professor Scott Galloway is a bright guy. He's been very prescient in many things he's said. And I consider him to be a fountainhead of knowledge when it comes to economics. In the last couple of years, definitely since the rise of Andrew Tate, Professor Galloway has gone a little bit further. He's waded in on this end of the pool to talk about what the problem is with men today. And I've spoken about this before, but I want to go a little bit more in depth. And because of some of the things I'm going to talk about tonight, I'm going to go over this video from Diary of a CEO with some of the things he was talking to Professor Scott Galloway about what it is with the women and what the women are not happy about. And I wanted to go over a few details here because it's very, very telling.
It has knock-on effects for women.
By the way, fair use, sir, and all the rest of you there. By the way, is fair use.
And I think the data is also suggesting that the crisis amongst men is causing, in many situations, a crisis for women as well, because we both, men and women exist in an ecosystem that needs to be somewhat balanced.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to talk about the impact this is having on women. One of the things I found interesting, it's actually because of a young woman came up to me in a bookshop. I was just there looking for my own book, as you do, just because it just come out. And she said something to me that a lot of women that have approached me or DM'd me have said quite frequently, which is she's over the age of 30 now. She's committed much of her life to her career. She's single. She's...
Okay, let me go ahead and stop the young man right there. Because what he's saying right there, this is highly misleading. You want to know why it is that men today don't want kids anymore? Because of what he just did. There's a female. She's 30. And she's at a bookstore. And she's given her life up to this point to her career. This is very misleading.
30 now. She's committed much of her life to her career. She's single. She's tried dating apps and she doesn't enjoy it. And part of me started to think about the fact she might be caught in a sort of generational gap where they used to meet in person, but now the generation below her meet online. And she concluded what she was saying to me with the fact that she believes, or she's starting to believe, that maybe there's something wrong with her. Because she's over the age of 30, she's single, she can't find a partner. She told me she's never had a boyfriend. She's killing it in her career. And she was in that bookshop looking for advice from a book.
Now, did you hear that part right there? Because you see, it's necessary to dissect this because of all the misinformation and, quite frankly, dishonest statements being made. And what he just made was a dishonest statement. You heard him say she's been focused on her career. I've never had a boyfriend. Yeah, but you didn't say that she's never had sex.
What?
Did you get that? So he goes down this list of things and he mentions that she said, I've never had a boyfriend, but she's on dating apps. Never had a boyfriend on dating apps. Yeah, but you know, I know this is very, you conveniently left out whether or not she's a virgin. Isn't that very conspicuously absent from the list he just gave? He mentioned everything except she's a virgin. Because if you tell me that you've never had a boyfriend and yet you've been sexually active, oh hell, well, you've been run through like a track team. So you've had a lot of men on top of you, just nobody willing to stand beside you. And he worded that in such a way as to lead you to think a certain thing. And he omitted a very important piece of information. And he did it deliberately. Now with the men, they go straight to whether or not you can get some sex or not. Oh, you're an incel. You're this, that, and the other. And yet with this right here for the female, he conveniently leaves out the most important piece of information because then it would illuminate the type of female she is. And why it is that men are evading her, or at least the men that she now wants at 30 years old after 12 or 14 years of getting run through the sexual ringer. Now she wants a man who will, quote, commit. This is going to bring us to really the root of the problem that so many people want to try to ignore. We're trying to tell the men that the men should not want what the men actually want. They shouldn't want that. They should want whatever is slopped off the table onto the floor at them. And fellas are not going for it because they're not motivated. Who is motivated for somebody's 30-year-old recessive spinster run-through chick from 10, 12 years ago with the weight gain and the stretch mark? What man is motivated for that? So she's gotten a job, and because she's gotten a job where she works under a man who's in the top 10%, she thinks that her proximity in the workplace to a man, because, well, I've met some men in the top 10%, that entitles her to a man in the top 10%. Oh, no, I'm not exaggerating. He goes on to say that's exactly what she's looking for.
And I feel compelled, because I know she listens to this podcast, to ask as many people as I can the question to find an answer for her, because there's someone very close to me in my life who I literally text when I left the bookshop, and I said, I've just met you in the bookshop.
So now he's talking about another female, and yet he's not being honest about what their actual circumstances are.
Every sentence that woman said to me in the bookshop is the exact word for word, even like I've tried going to the gym and that's not working, is the same as
And I know I'm doing a lot of stopping here, but I just don't have to go back over this. Let me say something to y'all right now. And this is why I say tonight's program is going to be a little bit of a rant. I go to the gym, okay? There are 3 types of females who go to the gym. Let's be very, very clear about this. There are 3 types of females who go to the gym. And that's the truth. Number 1 are the females who go to stay in some semblance of physical fitness because they get something out of it. Number 2, or which should really be number 1, are the females who go to the gym and fail. They are going to the gym, bull jiving around. Nothing's happening. Whether it's New Year's resolutions or whatever, ain't nothing really popping off at the gym for them. So it ain't really happening. So ain't no need to talk about it. Then you've got the third category. The third category are the gym rats. The females who you never have to worry about their physical fitness. You never have to worry about their attractiveness, at least physically. Well, no, but can I just be brutally honest right now? Folks, let me be brutally honest with you. To the ladies listening live or recorded. Most of you females who are gym rats, you are out of your freaking minds. Damn! I mean, let me just be totally honest. You're like the anime nerds of the world. You have a relationship with a dumbbell or a barbell or a treadmill, but psychologically and emotionally, you're screwed in the head and you don't really have the ability to relate to a man. You can relate to a gym mat. You can relate to a yoga club full of females. You can relate to everything except a single man sitting in front of you. Psychologically and emotionally, you're a train wreck. That's just the truth. I'm not telling you this from the perspective of some teeny bopper teenager here. This is from a dude who's been out here several decades now. Most females who are gym rats are screwed up in the head. That's why they gym rats. They'll be the first one talking about, ooh, the men in the gym, all they want to do is you lay up with you and whatnot. Man, you've never been you don't see yourself the way you are. They don't have a personality. Females who are gym rats don't have personality. They are essentially physical fitness anime nerds. The only thing they can talk about is the gym and their dietary restrictions. That's it. They don't have a personality. They're emotionally imbalanced. They don't have a life, nothing you want to be involved in. They're completely self-absorbed. They couldn't carry a conversation if you gave them a forklift to pick it up with. And that's the truth. The gym is like a job to them. It's just like another job or another career. It's not something that they do in between other things. It's the reason they got up this morning. They'd rather be at the gym than be with a man. They would rather be at the gym than have a family. They'd rather be at the gym than have a productive, meaningful, fulfilling relationship with another human being. They are gym cells. What? Did I just come up with a new term tonight? I guess I did. Y'all can go ahead and tell anybody else who uses it. They better give my publishing. But yeah, female gym rats and the so-called female fitness buffs, they're gym cells. Not just incels, not just fem cells, gym cells. And that's the truth. So the fellas are out here, even if the guys try to get one-dimensional, the more physically fit she is, the less emotionally balanced she is. And even the women who go to the gym, y'all know full damn well, usually you got your friend who goes to the gym, or God forbid she's a fitness trainer. Those are the absolute worst of the worst. It's not like dealing with a human being. It's like dealing with the RoboVac 5,000. But it's true. So when you tell me that they go to the gym, that's actually not a compliment. It's not necessarily a compliment. In many cases, it's a bad thing.
I've tried going to the gym and that's not working. Is the same as a close friend in my life, one of my best friends, has said to me as well. And there's not just one in my personal life, there's 3 or 4.
Well, we all know women, I'm sure this happens to you all the time, really interesting, high character, successful, attractive women, usually in their 30s, sometimes in their 40s.
Okay, first of all, Professor Galloway, high character? What does that mean? Because you see, in my world, high character is a female that doesn't abort babies. In my world, high character is a female that doesn't have some crazy ass exotic body count. In my world, high character is a female that is selfless. And I don't think the things you're about to name off coincide with any of the things that actually have to do with character. Holding a job isn't necessarily an indicator of character. It's certainly not the one that men are looking to extend themselves and put themselves at risk for. So when folks use these words, they use these words in ways that are very flattering, but they're also very misleading because they're not actually accurate to what men can expect. Is he describing things that a man can say, oh, if you got that, you have character as a female? That not just character, high character? Because she got a job? High character because she has a job? Really?
I'm sure this happens to you all the time. Really interesting, high character, successful, attractive women, usually in their 30s, sometimes in their 40s, who will say, I can't find anyone to date. And it's not that they can't find anyone to date. It's that they can't find anyone they want to date. And there's some dynamics here. The first is...
Can I just interject to validate your point there? She also said to me, I'm not willing to drop my standards.
Damn! Did I call it or did I call it? I told you, by the way, yeah, Miss 30-year-old, ain't never had a boyfriend and yet sexually active. I got a career, and after a decade, oh, by the way, I have standards. A female who tells you she's never had a boyfriend is also telling you I got standards. So what does that mean? Oh, she's had plenty of male interactions, usually naked for a night or two. She's had plenty of male interactions. Yeah, but she's here to tell you she got standards. And yet no man was willing to extend himself for that.
So said to me, I'm not willing to drop my standards.
Well, and it's like Warren Buffett said, the key to a healthy marriage is low expectations.
Okay, think about that for a few seconds there, fellas. Hurry, step right up. Hey guys, go ahead and get married and have some kids because Warren Buffett, another one of these rich dudes, said that the key to happy marriage is low expectations. So let me get this straight. A man should be willing to zero himself out, lose his livelihood, lose his house, lose his money, lose his years, lose his life in a situation of low expectations. Somebody tell me a place where low expectations leads to high return, because I've just described a situation that is ultra high risk, high expense. And you were just told high risk, high expense, but low expectations. Now that's what they say to the men. They never tell the women, you need to have low expectations. They tell the women, whatever it is you want. And even if they say you can't have it all, and we tell you can't have it all, they never stand on that because they don't get off into the details of what the women cannot have. They just, well, you can't have it all. They never tell the women what they can't have. Now, they're quick to tell the men what they can't have, but they don't actually list for the women, by the way, you can't have that. And even if they do, somebody else runs it right behind them. Yeah, girl, you can. So, by the way, yeah, hey, fellas, high risk, low reward. Hurry up and get married so you can carry the high risk and get the low rewards. And oh yeah, by the way, you will be obligated by the court system and the legal system and the political system. You'll be required to carry that by yourself. The woman you marry will not be required to do it. You will. Just you. You can enter into this together, but if it falls apart, you'll be expected to carry all the liability. And by the way, you should be happy. Low expectations.
What's happening is, and I think his name's Chris Williams. He kind of reminds me of you. He's this handsome young podcaster who's blown by all us old guys. You know Chris?
Yeah, I know Chris.
Anyways, he does a fantastic job, and I've learned a lot from him. But he calls it the high heels effect. And that is every year for the last 50 years, women have become better educated and they're making more money. In urban centers, they've now, under the age of 30, blown by. They're now making more money. More single women in the U.S. own houses than single men. They're getting taller every year. And the reason he uses...
Okay, now did you notice what he's not saying there? Every year they're making more money. Well, yeah, they're making more money than they were. They're not making more than the men. And remember, we already debunked this a couple of years ago. The females only make more money at entry-level jobs. Once they get into their 30s, the men blow past them and never look back. So that's misleading. Professor Galloway might want to check his statistics and facts on that. That's misleading. It's only correct at the beginning. Follow the long tail of that. The situation has not changed. Women are buying more houses. Professor Galloway, a house is no longer an investment, sir. A house is not an investment. A house is a huge liability. A house is comfort food. It's really comfort junk food. Anybody who's looked at the price of housing, they realizes, oh, that's not really an investment anymore. So we can't brag that females are putting themselves under huge amounts of debt for student loans and then begging the government to bail them out, huge amounts of debt for mortgages and begging the government to bail them out, and then talking about they're killing the game. You know, they're just killing themselves. They're just killing themselves. The numbers don't actually work out. They never have. This isn't a title that men need to be chasing or competing for. So to hold that up as a metric of women doing well, when you take a look at women's wealth and women's income and realize, oh, wait, there's falling behind. Obviously, that's not the benefit that it would be tried to be characterized as. So while Professor Galloway is listening to Chris Williamson, he really needs to tune into this program. So you can actually get the real numbers here. Because the issue here, and hopefully Professor Galloway will take this as an opportunity because my program gets around. When he hears this, he can take this as an opportunity to update his files.
Join me, and I will complete your training.
So that we can put these things in their proper context. Men today have gotten smart, Professor Galloway. Men are survivalists. Men are minimalists. We figured out a long time ago that student loan debt was a con job. We figured out a long time ago that mortgages and bank mortgages for the home are no longer an investment. So if you can't get in early and cheap, it doesn't work for you because it can't work for you. So the men did what pragmatic survivalists do, bailed out on these bad investment strategies. Student loan debt is a bad investment strategy. Even Professor Galloway will admit that at New York University. Student loan debt is a bad investment strategy. A mortgage as a place to live is a bad investment strategy. The males have bailed out of that, and what do you know? Women don't make more than we do, just like married men don't make more money than single men. They just spend more money than single men. They're on the hook for more debt than single men. But they don't make more money. They just spend more. Smart men have bailed out of that futile race. It's not like we get a participation trophy for racking up more student loan debt or buying a more expensive house. What's the reward that we get for doing that? You don't get anything. So we're not chasing symbolic trophies. So when Professor Galloway hears this, this will be an opportunity for him to update his files. Those are symbolic trophies from a bygone era. They're no longer relevant today the way they once were. That's from a bygone era.
His height is that 50% of women say they won't date a guy in the U.S. own houses than single men. They're getting taller every year. And the reason he uses height is that 50% of women say they won't date a guy shorter than them. It's probably more like 80%. And even if they're not cognizant of it, just anthropologically, subconsciously, they're just usually not attracted to men shorter than them. because they have something telling them that this individual is less likely to be able to physically protect you. So you're just at a disadvantage from a height standpoint. Now, metaphorically, women are getting taller every year and men are getting shorter, right? Men mate socioeconomically horizontally and down, women horizontally and up. But when the pool of men who are socioeconomically senior to women, it just means that the quote unquote pool of viable mates for women is going down every year. And women have been told they can have it all. And what I found is you can't have it all. Or let me put it this way, you can have it all, you just can't have it all at once. And that...
Did you get that? You can have it all, you just can't have it all at once. That can't be true. Either you can have it all or you can't have it all. You can't have it. As evidenced by the fact that 90% of relationships are ended by, yikes, the folks who realize later is, oh, he lied to me. Why not? Because he didn't give me everything I wanted. Okay. No kids there.
To focus on their careers, which, by the way, I think is a good thing. I think economic viability is just super important for everyone, including women.
Okay, Professor Galloway, you can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. You cannot say that the women are going to be the men's companions and simultaneously be their competitors. Women cannot admire someone they don't look up to. You sit up here and tell the women they must compete against the men. By definition, that's going to breed contempt. So the pool of men that they're going to desire is automatically going to shrink because they're going to falsely, because it's false, they're going to falsely tell themselves that their income makes them on par with their male counterparts. And it doesn't. But they will be deceived into thinking, well, I was able to get a job in air conditioning at a desk because, Lord forbid, we ain't going to do no manual labor. We only want the nice, soft jobs. And I'm going to say that that makes me equal to men. And that should determine the type of man I should have. One who is out competing me. Never mind the fact that, and here's the part that Professor Galloway does not go into. Professor Galloway, take this as an opportunity. This is a teaching moment. Here's an opportunity for you to update your files. The things that you're saying are good are absolutely worthless to men. None of us are sitting around saying, damn, we wish we had a chick who made six figures. It's a nice addition. But that's not the thing that that's not something that men are absolutely requiring. She can be everything a man wants to be with no income required, much less an ever increasing income. Got to climb that corporate ladder. That doesn't enhance a woman's value to a man. That enhances a man's value to women. That does not enhance women's value to us. It doesn't. So no, it's not a good thing because she's wasting time majoring in the minors rather than focusing on something that men do value and that does carry credibility with men and would enhance her value to men. She's instead focusing on something that actually diminishes her value. You can be the things that make her valuable as an employee are not the things that make her valuable as a mate. Professor Galloway has been on the boards of corporations. So I don't know if he's saying that to be politically correct or whatever, but the bottom line is, sir, the things that make those women valuable to you at those companies are not the things that make them valuable to us as a mate. Never have been, never will be. The things that make your female employees valuable to you are not the things that we value as men in a mate.
And that to focus on their careers, which, by the way, I think is a good thing. I think economic viability is just super important for everyone, including women. But the reality is, as they have gotten taller, men have gotten shorter, so there's just less pairing. Society has a tendency to evaluate a woman's success through the lens of her romantic success, not as much for men. People look at you and think, and I don't know your relationship status, but people look at you like, guy who's killing it. He's killing it, and he's single. Oh my God, it's good to be Stephen Bartlett. A woman in her 30s who's killing a professional is alone. It's like super successful, but Your single status is a feature. For women, it's seen as a bug, and you both might be just as lonely. But it's
Well, that's strange, because if you're going to sit up here and call men incels because they're not having sex and this, that, and the other, I mean, which one is it? Is it negative for men and, oh, you're a misogynist or this, that, and the other? Or is it a negative for everybody or a negative for nobody? Which one is it? Folks, we can't sit up here and jumble the rules when it suits us. We have to have a solid, defined set of definitions and rules so that we can actually understand what the issue is and then make progress. You can't say one thing one day and something else the next day when it suits you. So either being single, regardless of socioeconomic status, is a plus or it isn't. You can't say for men, it's like, oh, well, that's great for men, and then turn around and say, but you could be an incel or a misogynist.
Or you might be engaging in, and I'm projecting here, I have no idea what your situation is here, but there's this dynamic where the men who are in the top 10% can engage in Porsche polygamy. And that is women with online dating now believe, there's something wrong with this, that, and I'm going to be, this is going to get me in trouble, but let's rate with online dating now believe, there's something wrong with this.
Now, remember, he said now women, he's talking about the women. Now, he said that the men are engaging in Porsche polygamy. Now, isn't that interesting? So Professor Galloway, if you want to understand something here, there's a reason why a lot of what you all say that the Andrew Tates of the world can resonate with the men, because the Andrew Tates are not characterizing the men as negative, and with the women, there's nothing wrong with this. Porsche polygamy? How about just having options? Because with females, well, option to have the baby or have an abortion. Okay, with the men, why isn't it just the men have options? The men have mobility. No, it's Porsche polygamy. Polygamy? Polygamy is not a positive thing. Polygamy is a negative. Polygamy is a negative, which is why they had to make a new term, polyamorous. Polygamy is a negative. It's a crime. Please remember that. You try to practice polygamy, you can keep going until that becomes a crime. That's not a positive, it's a negative. So for the men, it's polygamy. Then what is it for the females, who are the ones who are actually insisting on the situation? Because men did not invent, quote, Porsche polygamy. The women did. In fact, they insisted on it. The women created it, and yet the men are on the negative end of it. What is this?
And that is women, I'm projecting here, I have no idea what your situation is here, but there's this dynamic where the men who are in the top 10% can engage in Porsche polygamy. And that is women with online dating now believe, there's something wrong with this, that, and I'm going to be, this is going to get me in trouble, but let's rate everybody. Most people will acknowledge that some people are more attractive than others, and they find certain people less and more attractive. A woman of average attractiveness can have a relationship, and when I say relationship, that's code for sex, with someone who's in the top 10%. But that individual is probably not going to establish a long-term relationship. And because of the lack of friction and connection and meeting people via text message or online dating, the top 10% of men are getting 80 plus percent of the opportunities for short-term relationships or sex. So they can engage in what's called Porsche polygamy, and that there's not a lot of motivation for them to establish long-term relationships, which leads to bad behavior and a lack of household formation. So the guys that,
I mean, do you see that? It leads to bad behavior and a lack of household formation. Now, he just said, and Professor Galloway, take this as a moment for some self-reflection. For the females, he said there was nothing wrong for the females chasing and fueling Porsche polygamy. But the men, it's Porsche polygamy, and it's bad behavior and lack of family formation. Never mind the fact that only 20% of the men are single fathers. Meanwhile, almost half the females are the single moms. But he didn't put that responsibility or the onus on the men. He didn't put it on the women, he puts it on the men. A situation where it takes two to tango. In this case, you got 10 females lined up for one man. He doesn't put it on the 10 women. He puts it on the one man, and you're engaging in bad behavior for exactly what he just said. There was nothing wrong with it. But now you know what he means. Oh, there's nothing wrong with it for the females. So Professor Galloway, I have a tremendous amount of respect for his abilities as an entrepreneur and in economics. But now that he's ventured in this area here, it's like, dude, the reason that young fellas listen to Andrew Tate, not guys like you, is because they don't want to be gaslit with male feminism and trying to camouflage it as, oh, this is an objective analysis. No, it's not. This is just feminism. The females can do whatever, and the males need to man up and take responsibility. Instead of saying, you know what, if it takes two to tango, we shouldn't be saying the men are bad behavior. If it's bad behavior, it better be for both of them. In which case, you don't have a problem with bad behavior? Well, then how is it bad behavior if you don't have a problem with it? There's a reason that these young fellas don't listen to these older cats. No matter how much money y'all got, no matter how much money you've made, there's a reason that intrinsically, instinctively, these young men are not listening to you when you go off and say things that you're obviously like running game. They're not listening to you when you do that. If you want to have credibility, you got to have credibility. Credibility doesn't sit there and in real time contradict itself and have illogical fallacies. Credibility doesn't do that. I like to see you keep your credibility. So take this. If you're listening to Chris Williamson, who he himself is learning, hopefully you stumble across the black book here so you can get that corrected, sir.
Most women want and believe that they should be in a relationship with are the least likely to establish a long-term relationship. And then the bottom 90 either have little or absolutely no interest from women. So I want to be clear, no woman is responsible for servicing a man. But what I think has happened is this dynamic where, because online has given everyone access to everyone, the majority of women are all interested in the same group. And this group is now much less likely to engage in a long-term relationship. And the result is just there's a disproportionate number of men and women who, quite frankly, are just lonely. But men have a tendency, when they don't have a romantic relationship, to not only not have that romantic relationship, but then they have fewer friends.
Okay, now, Professor Galloway just told you that there was nothing wrong with the women engaging in that behavior of, as Jordan Peterson calls it, consolidating on the top 10% of men. He just told you there was nothing wrong with that, and there wasn't a problem. Then he tells you about all the bad things from it. Sir, you can't have it both ways. Unless you're saying that there's nothing wrong with these bad things happening. They're bad things. I ain't got a problem with it. Okay, that's kind of a unusual moral stance to take there. As I see these bad things that leads to terrible outcomes, horrible societal implications. I ain't got no problem with it. Then I don't know why you would be commenting on something that you have no problem with. I don't know why you would call something bad and simultaneously say there's nothing wrong with it. I can't think of anything. That's a contradiction. Bad, but also nothing wrong with it? You guys are trying too hard. What I'm saying is young men are immediately seeing the logical fallacy here and the contradiction, and you lose them. As soon as you do this, you lost them. They're not slow enough to go along with this twisted logic you're trying to employ. The young fellows not slow enough to go along with that. They have life experiences. They didn't get what they got from the internet. They got it from what they see on the streets, and the internet just helped them to articulate what they've seen. And gaslighting isn't going to make it very far. As a matter of fact, you'd be a whole lot better off if you just never tried it. They're not as slow as you want to try to pretend they are.
And women who, quite frankly, are just lonely. But men have a tendency, when they don't have a romantic relationship, to not only not have that romantic relationship, but then they have fewer friends. They go out less. They're less professionally successful. You know, if I didn't have a mate who told me we need to save for a house, I'm not sure I wouldn't have been smoking pot and drinking every night. You know, she was like, if you want to continue to have a relationship and have sex with me, You've got to get your shit together. Young men need that.
Okay, let me go ahead and back up here. Well, young men, I want you to hear the things that he said that he's characterizing as negatives now, okay?
Friends, they go out to not only not have, who quite frankly are just lonely. But men have a tendency when they don't have a romantic relationship to not only not have that romantic relationship, but then they have fewer friends.
All right, let's go ahead and examine that right quick. When men don't have romantic relationships, they have fewer friends. And that's a good thing, Scott. That's a good thing. Because with women, we call that focusing on yourself and building yourself. But for men, we start characterizing that self-work as being a negative. So everything he's saying, for the women, these are all positives. But for the men, they characterize it as a negative. Let's be clear about something here. Men do well when we are alone. Women are intrinsically social creatures. Isolating a woman cracks her psyche. Isolating men focuses us. Let me say that again. Isolating women cracks their psyches. Women are emotionally dependent, nurturing. They require that because that is intrinsic to a feminine being. They are biologically wired. They got fallopian tubes and uteruses. They are biologically wired to inculcate the company of more than one person at a biological level. This is biology, Professor Galloway, not sociology. This is biology. Women are social creatures by biology, nurturing by biology, supposed to be empathic, although feminism has killed a lot of that, by biology. Isolation does not help you become a better nurturer. Isolation and nurturing are contradictory, which is why men are not nurturing. We're mentors, we're leaders, we don't nurture. The females nurture. And because men put themselves at tremendous risk and harm's way to soften and cushion society for the females, they have the luxury of sitting around and chatting with other people because we take care of the big dangers. The men, being a survivalist, being a specialist, that requires focus. And focus is best honed in isolation. So as men, we are enhanced by being isolated. When you want a man to, quote, get his stuff together, do you surround him with his friends? Which is, by the way, Professor Galloway, in case you didn't know this, take this as a moment to update your files. And this is coming from somebody who actually respects Professor Galloway. This is a chance for you to update your files. Sir, do you realize you're contradicting yourself here? On the one hand, you're painting males being alone as a negative. Then you're saying that your woman told you get your stuff together. Getting your stuff together meant for you to get out by yourself. Look at yourself. Focus on yourself. Kick yourself in the rear and get yourself better. Not hang out with your buddies and your mates puffing the blunt. Being alone is what men do because we're stepping back and we're recalibrating. You see, when the situation does not work for us, smart men do. Survival doesn't dictate that you keep doing something that's already failing. As men, we are practical and pragmatic. If something is not working for us, we stop. And that's what's startling all of them and frightening them, is that they're seeing males in massive numbers are just stopping. They're freezing in their tracks. They're not continuing to do the same fruitless thing over and over again. Now, what he doesn't like is maybe they're not looking for the solution that he would want them to, but no, they are doing what biology would dictate. This is not working. So they're freezing and stopping in their tracks. And then they're starting to go in reverse. I must have made a mistake back there somewhere. Let me go back and figure out where I took the wrong turn at. But I will not keep going forward because I'm not sure that this is actually moving forward. So what the males are doing is what survival dictates. They're stopping. They're getting by themselves. They're blocking out outside influences and outside stimuli and distractions. They're doing self-work. They're focusing on themselves. They're reconsidering themselves. They're isolating themselves. And what you're not liking is the fact that, well, yeah, there's some productivity that's fallen off. Productivity to the society in general, productivity to a female contingent that doesn't appreciate them, productivity to an academic establishment that is disregarding the truth of what the problem is in favor of politically incorrect flim-flam, specifically intended to deceive and avoid saying the obvious truth, which is, yeah, feminism and all this stuff right here. Yeah, that's the problem. There it is. That's the problem. They don't want to come out and say that. Okay, well, the fella's not going to play games with you. They'll just go turn on Andrew Tate. Even if he's a whack job, he is at least acknowledging what the reality actually is. So they have a choice between a whack job who acknowledges what the reality actually is and an otherwise brilliant man who refuses to say what the problem really is because he's afraid he's going to offend his female colleagues. Dude, this is a survival question at this point. It's just survival. You're contradicting yourself. And young men are not going to sit there and babble around with you like that. When they hear you talk like this, they're just going to turn you off. They're just going to disregard you. They're not going to sit there and say, whoa, he's being real deep. I hadn't considered that. They're going to say, yeah, more male feminist babble. That's what they're going to say. Because it is. It is. So no, men being alone is not a negative. Men shutting out outside distractions is not a negative. That's men regrouping. That's what a male is supposed to do. That's what you did, Professor Galloway. But because the female's not receiving the benefits that they thought they were going to receive before, now it's a negative. Didn't he just sit there and say that he's not saying that women should be required to service men? And yet you're turning around articulating that men should be required to service women. That whatever it is the women want, the men need to figure out how to kick it in gear. And do that. As I said, the males are not as slow as they would need to be to swallow a lot of this, my man. They're not as slow as they would need to be to swallow this.
They go out less.
How is that a negative? They are alone more. They have fewer friends. They go out less. Okay, so on the one hand, they're not making enough money and they're not experts enough because they won't sit down and focus on themselves and isolate themselves. On the one hand, he says that that's what you need to do. Now he's saying it's a negative. Stay your ass at home, go to work, take care of the family. Wait a minute, I thought that was a positive. Now he's saying it's a negative. Oh, only if it doesn't serve the females. If the female is not benefiting from it, now it's a negative. Can't a male do all these things simply for his own benefit, simply to improve himself, simply to enhance his well-being? With the women, we're told that's great. Okay, as soon as the men do it, oh, that's a negative. That's bad behavior. Oh, you're not really being a man. So the females, that's a positive. And if a man does it in service to a female, that's a positive. If he does it for himself as a reaction to a hostile environment, now it's a negative. People, do you realize how much brain power and manpower is focused and concentrated towards figuring out how to get men to go along with their own servitude? Do you realize that? Do you realize how many people sit around trying to figure out how to intellectually maneuver men into just going back to work? Don't expect anything. He literally is telling you, work your ass off and don't expect anything. Low expectations. You should give maximum effort. He said the low expectations part before. Now he's saying the maximum effort. You need to give maximum effort to get low expectations.
They're less professionally successful. You know, if I didn't have a mate who told me we need to save for a house, I'm not sure I wouldn't have been smoking pot and drinking every night.
Okay, Professor Galloway, now here's where I got to go deep off into it and take this as a teaching moment. No offense. Take this as a teaching moment. With all due respect, the thing that Professor Galloway and all these male feminist adjacent critics don't understand is you all assume that most males today want to have the option in females that you had. And that's not necessarily true, man. We don't know what kind of woman you're referring to. She floated your boat. Great, grand, wonderful. That doesn't speak for the male population at large. We need more details. You can't hold up yours with nothing that we've seen as an example of something that we want to have when we don't have anything to compare it to. We can't analyze it and say, yeah, that's what I want. Because if you're married to Sexy Red, what? Then hell no, we don't give a damn if she wants a house and a car and nothing else. She ain't worth that level of effort and labor and sacrifice. So you all are just talking as if you're assuming that we want the same caliber of female that is. I'm saying you ain't qualified it yet. So I'm helping you out here. Let me explain something to you. There's a certain type of female that highly motivates men to want to extend themselves, risk themselves, have a family, have children. There's a type of female that highly motivates men of this era, and those women are in pitifully short supply. Denying this reality isn't gonna change it. And the media, education, the industrial complex, the corporate sector, they're dedicated toward making females as undesirable as possible. Professor Galloway's sitting here cheerleading for things that are undesirable traits in females. Meanwhile, wagging your finger at the men. So the women can stay the way they are, but the men need to change. Well, the women should understand they can't have it all. Then he stopped himself. Actually, you can have it all. Well, Professor Galloway, you notice he's not saying that the men can have it all. Did you all get that? He sat there and said that the women can have it all. Right after he said they can't, he turned, well, actually, the women can. Okay, the women can have it all, but the men can't. As a matter of fact, the men shouldn't even want it all. As a matter of fact, you're a bad man. It's bad behavior for you to want it all. Why, that's breakdown of the family. It isn't for the females. Nothing wrong with it for the females. For the men, oh, you're bad. You're bad. All I'm doing is eliminating the things you've said. Take this as a teaching moment. Chris Williamson will not articulate these things. I respect Professor Galloway as much as anybody. I just don't fanboy, and if I found a fallacy here, he can take this as a peer review so we can go ahead and clear that up. But Professor Galloway, if you want to know why it is, you don't have those words. Most of what you're saying is going to fall on deaf ears, even though to you it seems to make sense. It's going to fall on deaf ears because what you're saying is in denial of reality and so obviously biased against the men. If the women can have it all, then the men can have it all. But you mentioned the men having it all and then said it was a negative. And that's the problem. Why would we want to have children under those circumstances with individuals like you at these universities telling the women they can have it all? And then immediately turning and looking at the men in the room and saying, and you got to pay for it. People like Professor Galloway on this subject are out of touch. Because you're not out here in the field today making relationships with the females today. You're projecting from a classroom. You're not having to live under the circumstances that you're speaking on. You're not looking for a female that you got to do this for. You talking about where you've been. You're not out here trying to get a female today and do this for her today, but you're wagging your finger at the young men today as if they should extend themselves and risk themselves for a situation that you're not in and you won't even go into. You would never go into this situation today. Professor Galloway would never do it in a million years. He'd never go back out there today. while he's going to try to tell you about why it's okay for you. He'd never go back out there. There's a certain type of female that motivates males to risk themselves and sacrifice themselves. You want to know where things went wrong, Professor Galloway? You don't want to be honest about this. You're going to have to be. If you don't want to continue to be irrelevant on this, you're going to have to be. Boys go through middle school and high school seeing all the females in their classes get run through, often by men far older than them. This isn't something they saw on the internet from Andrew Tate. This is what males have seen in their daily lives in every single city, in every single state, in every single place across this planet, especially across the United States of America. They're not telling you what somebody else told them. They're telling you what they've seen. The females at a young age make it very clear that they are very social, very sociable, and very sexually active. And all the males are doing is cataloging, okay, this is what they're going for. And this is what the males see. And then you have the totally outlandish expectation that when these males are grown, they're just going to pretend that none of that happened. They didn't see any of that. None of that occurred. And he needs to just shake it off and get over it and dedicate himself to that. See, Professor Galloway here is leaving out very conveniently, because you got to leave it out because it's not very flattering here. Let me tell you right now, most of the fellas getting married today, most of the fellas at best, you getting a run-through ragged out broad, and at worst, you getting somebody's cast-off baby mama. You can't have no kids with them or anything. You're taking on all the liability. You get none of the benefits. She left her best years with somebody else. And if you do decide to have kids, you're dealing with all of the psycho baggage. And he's not saying a word about that. They don't want to talk about the antidepressants. They don't want to talk about the mental health crisis that's going on among the females. They don't want to talk about any of that and say, hey, fellas, why don't you want to have kids with a segment of the population that we have categorically, academically measured? Hey, there's some real mental and emotional health problems going on here that you're going to walk into, and she's going to expect you to take care of fixing all of that, not even fixing it, you just tolerate it. And that the perfect relationship, let's be clear, the perfect relationship in society today, from the female perspective, the perfect relationship is a man who does everything for her and she does absolutely nothing for him. That there's nothing but constant pressure on him to please her and make sure she's good and she's happy. And in her world, the perfect relationship is all the pressure is on him to make her happy, and there's absolutely no pressure on her whatsoever to please him at a single thing. People, that's not a relationship except a master-slave relationship. That's a master-slave relationship. See, these folks are not stupid or silly about this. They know why it is that men don't want to have kids. They know why it is that men are backing out of marriage and backing out of childbirth. They know what it is. Now they're trying to figure out some way to jive talk you into going back into servitude, and it's not working. Let me give you another example right here. This is from Time Magazine now. Time Magazine. Here's an alpha male here if I ever saw one. Time Magazine, U.S. births declined in 2023 to their lowest level in more than 40 years.
Auntie, chill.
And when did the sexual revolution kick off? 50 years ago, 50, 60 years ago, sexual revolution kicked off. They call it the sexual revolution. Slut culture kicked off 60 years ago with birth control and abortion. And what do you know? Within one generation, 20 years later, the birth rate starts sliding. That's not the men, Professor Galloway. Listen to me. That's not the men. No matter how you try to restate it, reword it, recontextualize it. It ain't gonna work, buddy. Math is math. That's not the men. But it isn't. Now I want you all to listen to what these clowns said, because you heard the Washington Post. And if you want to know why it is that people don't read magazines and newspapers anymore, I want you to listen to what they have to say here, okay? I'm going down here. It says, birth rates in countries around the world have been declining, mainly in wealthier nations, as economic instability and uncertainty over events like the pandemic discourage people from having children, even though you acknowledge this was happening well before the pandemic. While countries including France and China have taken measures to try to encourage couples to have children, U.S. birth rates have been stifled by forces like lack of paid family leave and skyrocketing health costs. Paid family leave was not an issue 50 years ago. Healthcare costs were not an issue 50 years ago. But then again, feminism and a weaponized court system and child support as a felony, that didn't exist 50 years ago either. No fault divorce, that didn't exist 50 years ago either. Lifetime alimony, that didn't exist 50 years ago either. If you roll those back, notice the writer of this article, another female, so you notice who they're getting to write these crap articles, sits up here and names something that she knows full well is not the issue. Not the issue at all. She says young U.S. adults are making conscious decisions about family planning and want to wait for when they can financially support themselves and the child, said Karen Guzzo, a demographer and the director of the Carolina Population Center at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Her research shows that Americans cite economic strains, work instability, political polarization, feminism, student loans, feminism, access to health care, climate change, and global conflicts as reasons to delay or not have children. Quote, people are deliberating parenting. No, men are saying, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. Because economic strain, being marched into court, Professor Galloway, and being knocked down for 50%, simply because the other person has broken their word, and you said, well, it's not her fault. If she can lie, she can cheat, whatever, she can break her word, and you still have to keep yours. If you've been financially providing, you have to keep doing that. Now, she doesn't have to keep sexually providing, cooking meals or anything else for you, but you must continue doing what you've been doing. You got to see the kids, and you got to take care of her no matter what. Dude, do you know how crazy y'all got to sound to even say that part? You're saying that part out loud. Do you know how crazy you sound when you say that? Really, this is the kind of stuff that goes on. It says here that the U.S. saw a slight uptick in birth rates from before the 2008 credit crunch, but they've declined overall 11% since 2000. Not since the pandemic 4 years ago, since 2024 years ago. While the economy has improved since the Great Recession, individual financial strains like student debt, she keeps trying to bring this back to females, even though the females are not the ones who are going to carry the household expenses or the debt from marriage. What they are not including is, by the way, why are the men refusing to carry the freight anymore, especially the children? And when you have a media that refuses to be honest and speak about this honestly and insist on propaganda, just understand propaganda only works if you can get the males to go along with it. But they're not. The data indicate that unplanned pregnancies have also fallen. Now, that's the part that scares you. So in other words, the only males who are out here cracking out the bastard kids are the bottom of the barrel males who will agree to be sperm donors, but they will not be protectors and providers, which forces the females to have to get off of their ass and go hump it at a job on their own. In which case they then go to social media and start screaming that they need a man and where the real men at. The real men are avoiding you. At least the smart ones are. Teen birth rates fell at 2% from the year earlier, capping a 68% decline from 2007 levels. The birth rate for women ages 20 to 24 declined by nearly half since 2007, reaching a record low of 55.4 births per 1,000 women. Peak birth rates have shifted to women in their 30s and 40s, but those rates declined in 2023 from the year earlier. Hispanic women were the rare group that saw more birth. Illegal aliens? I think you meant illegal aliens. The total birth rate has remained below the level of replacement since 2007, meaning the U.S. depends on illegals. Did I call it or did I call it? And understand something. I have to say this very briefly in passing, and then we're going to keep it pushing. A lot of folks didn't like it when I said that Jeff Bezos is a Latino. They didn't like it when I said that, but then I had to remind them, by the way, Hispanic is not a race, it is an ethnicity. And you may say that Jeff Bezos' stepfather was the Latino one. Okay, but take a look at how Jeff has lived his life ever since. Anybody who goes to Amazon's fulfillment centers, you can see them working there. And when Jeff Bezos did divorce his Anglo wife, what? Who did Jeff Bezos go and get with? Who did he cheat on his wife? The woman who helped him build Amazon. Who did he cheat on her with? And who is he with to this very day? When he finally had global options, after all the years of being this socially awkward nerd and everything else that a fly Latino would never talk to, when he finally did get into a position where his name was recognized everywhere, he traded it all in for a pure Latina. And who do you know is backing this to the hilt? Just saying. And here's Time Magazine to back it up. By the way, illegals. The NCHS will finalize birth data this summer. Do you realize how far your society has to fall that you're sitting up here saying, let's bring in illegals? Yeah, because the native male population isn't going for the bull crap anymore. They're not going for the legal and institutional oppression and servitude anymore. And they found the ways you're doing it. If they get married or have a child, here comes the state to say, okay, now we're going to put you in servitude. Now the men have backed off of it. Now they've backed off of it. And so you are in the unenviable position of trying to convince the men to do what their grandfathers did, even though the males today are under radically different circumstances than their grandfathers were and take outrageously higher risks than their grandfathers did, because you've got 10 times as much to lose as your grandfather did. The problem is that the majority of females, you want to know why it is? Let me go ahead and be brutally frank here with you one more time. The reason why most males today are not getting married, not having children, let's just lay it on the bricks. The problem is the majority of females today, the ones who are available, and available is a relative term, are precisely the types of females that men have revulsion for. Andrew Tate didn't do that to them, Professor Galloway. You have been a university professor. You still are. You see what the hell them gals are doing in your classroom. The difference is you're not looking to marry any of them. So you have no problem telling the young males today that they shouldn't have a problem with Chad's dripping sloppy seconds. You have no problem sitting up here promoting that because you ain't trying to take none of them. Hell, I'm not going to cast aspersions, but you're not going to claim any of them. While you're sitting up here telling the guys, the young men, what they should be okay with without asking them, by the way, are you cool with that? Hey, what's the real problem you have? Well, Professor Galloway, these hoes are run through and ragged out with crazy ass body counts and STDs and slutted the hell out and a bunch of single moms. Man, I'm not motivated to be a protector provider for that. He doesn't address that issue at all because you can't address it, because you know that's the real problem. On the college campuses today, y'all know them gals got their PhDs in slutting and hoeing. He doesn't say a word about that. He doesn't say a word about that high character. High character and high body count are not compatible, Professor Galloway. And you're not going to be able to logically argue and debate your way into it being. Those are not compatible. High character and high body count are not compatible. On top of that, high character from a generation of females, the female generation who invented the selfie.
Nigga, please.
You're talking about the female generation that went way beyond mirror, mirror on the wall. Now they got a cell phone. Every single female y'all know, every single one without fail, every single one's got selfies. The majority of the men don't have any selfies. The majority of the females, practically all of them, do. Isn't that a negative, sir? That's not just a disagreement. Isn't that a negative? What is there redeeming about being ruthlessly selfish, sexually promiscuous to the point of being happily depraved? In order for a man to want to have children, here's the requirement. Professor Galloway, take some notes. Chris Williamson, Rollo Tomasi, the rest of you, take some notes. Because all you guys get it wrong. Because what you're saying is not practical. You have no intention of taking what you're saying and putting it in the real world. You can't. It doesn't work. You want to know where it really comes from? Because in order for a man to want to have children with a woman, that woman has to be selfless. It is a huge risk and a huge sacrifice for a man to put himself into a position where he is financially and legally obligated to a woman who has the ability to leave. Whoa. The character traits we're looking for first and foremost is selfless. If the state is going to require the man to be financially obligated to her, well, as men, we're going to require her to be personally obligated to us. Oh, Professor Galloway told you shouldn't have any expectations. She can have it all. You can't even have an expectation. Then he wonders why Andrew Tate is getting the views. And when Professor Galloway ventures into this subject matter, he gets the booze, not the views. Professor Galloway, I'm giving you an opportunity to update your files. You have been grossly erroneous and in error. This is a chance to correct it. Women and children are a tremendous burden and sacrifice to men. The males are never allowed to forget that. We're never allowed to disregard it. Therefore, the females that we choose can never be allowed to disregard it either. So if the females are selfish and not selfless, that constitutes an unacceptable risk. If we're going to have to put everything on the line and put everything on the table and be willing to lose it all, then the females have to be willing to put everything on the line, everything on the table, not be able to walk away from it, and be willing to lose it all. Whatever the men are asked, the women must be equally asked to sacrifice the same amount. Not the men sacrifice 10 tons and the women can option 2 or 3 pounds. Nope. Bring your 10 tons right over here next to ours. Now that could be a reasonable risk for a man to take. Could be. But notice Professor Galloway and the rest of these folks will not say it in the plain and simple English that I just did. Why would babies and wives are high risk for men? What's the incentive for men to do this today when we're being told that we've got all the responsibilities, all the liabilities, and the females are the only ones entitled to the benefits? No, if I'm putting in all the risk and all the responsibility, shouldn't I get the majority of the benefits? Not only did Professor Galloway say you shouldn't get the majority of the benefits, he said you shouldn't have any expectations at all, or that they should be low expectations, high risk, high sacrifice, but you should expect low expectations. And then he wants to tell you why you need to have some babies with females that he doesn't want to have babies with. Females that he's not trying to be with. But you young fellas get on out there and do your duty like this is military conscription or something. Trying to do you a favor, Professor Galloway, because here's the killing part about it, my man. All those women in the left-wing political ideologues that you're trying to pander to, man, they don't even listen to you. They totally ignore you. I'm trying to help you right now. Dude, they ignore you. They're not listening to you. You're not going to get any rate of return for saying that. You're not staying on their good side. This is what we mean by out of touch. You're so far out of touch within the gender wars that you don't even realize that this kind of pandering don't matter to them. There are no females sitting back saying, yay, Professor Galloway, you go. They're not saying that. He says something else in here too I want to cover. I want to get to that also.
She was like, if you want to continue to have a relationship and have sex with me, you've got to get your shit together. Young men need that. They need the guardrail of a romantic interest, the cocktail or the peanut butter and chocolate of a household where one person is more risk aggressive. You know, that's really important. And pushing the boundaries of what can be done. And then another person who's more practical. And that oftentimes goes into gender roles. Not always, and sometimes it's flipped. But that's a powerful combination.
Okay, Professor Galloway, just understand, nobody's going to play that double talk with you right there. You just said, well, sometimes it goes into gender roles. No, sir, either it goes into gender roles or it doesn't, because you're talking about the men. There are no men with ovaries. So this is what I mean. You keep double speaking, dude. Men are straight and to the point. When you start sitting up here getting wishy-washy and flip-flopping and stuff, man, you lose them. You lost them when you do that. You lost them when you do that. Right there. You're not even trying to stay consistent on this. You cannot give the men are obligated, but you don't want to say gender roles because then you'd have to say the women are obligated, which is what you're trying to avoid saying. No, there are gender roles. Now tell the females, here's the clipboard and here's their list of dues for the day. He wants to find a way to not do that, to tell the men, here's what you need it. You need guardrails. Okay, but he doesn't want to say what the women need. Well, the men need this and the women, I mean, if you want to have it, you can. Dude, that's why the men are listening to Andrew Tate and not you, not on this subject matter. They'll listen to you about building a business. They'll take their manhood training from other people who are consistent and are not contradictory. So Professor Galloway, you've been a great benefit to me on some things. I'd like to be a benefit to you now. You need to start becoming consistent. All this double talk and double speak and contradiction kills your credibility on this subject before you can even talk. So if you want to start getting some credibility and start gaining it and keeping it, throw out the feminist talking points and all the flip-flopping. Stop sitting up here trying to pander to folks who don't even like you in the first place. Or if you're comfortable with that, just understand that men don't like pandering to folk who don't respect us. So don't expect to have a very good receptive audience to follow you into that.
That's really important. And pushing the boundaries of what can be done. And then another person who's more practical. And that oftentimes goes into gender roles. Not always, and sometimes it's flipped. But that's a powerful combination. 1 + 1 really does equal 3. And across every species, you see that the majority of really wonderful things, including offspring, but other things in terms of building a society, are a mix of different attributes. And so we have just fewer and fewer.
You know what's not a mix, Professor Galloway? Building skyscrapers, building bomb shelters, making armament. Those are men. The heavy lifting is the men. The dangerous work is the men. The high risk is the men. All these jobs are open to women. Women want the light work. The men are always taking the super high risk, the mega high risk, all the big stuff, the things that build a civilization. We've always had to do that. There were no women. Get the hell out of my face with your Makeda Queen fantasizing. Afrocentric fanboys and idiots. There were no women going in. When you take a look at the Maasai tribe today, those videos I like to show you of the tribesmen going after the animals and going after the lions and going after the bears, ain't a woman to ever be found. What? Ain't gonna be. That's not the way it works. That's never been the way it works. When the village is surrounded, they got the lions. When something goes bump in the night, it's the men who had to get up with their spears, with their shields. It's the men who have had to protect the tribe. It's the men who have had to fight off the beasts of the field. It's the men who have had to do that. Ain't never been one woman that sat here and said, y'all hang back. You can go make all the crazy ass movies you want to. That's why they're movies. You don't have any instance in real life. You have the luxury of doing that because the men have civilized and domesticated the environment, and we did it by ourselves. We didn't have any assistance doing that. That dead lion over there, it was only the men. That dead bear over there, only the men. That dead woolly mammoth over there, only the men. Just the men. Only. Only. It wasn't no we. Just the men. I will take it even further. Jason, do you really got to go there with it? I damn sure am. So you have had an agrarian society, and that 10,000 year figure is actually not accurate. I wish folk would stop doing that. That figure is actually not accurate. But I will be very, very generous. Even if you want to say 10,000, though the number is actually closer to more than twice that. But when you come to having an agrarian society and farming, that's the men. That's the men. The men have tilled the fields. The men have cleared the land. Women can't clear the land. Folks, do you all know how hard it is to get a large tract of land without power tools? Damn! Everybody today, you got now, just in the last century and a half, you've had Homo sapiens now for 200-something thousand years. And yes, 200,000. You've had Homo sapiens now for 200,000 years. And yet, you've only had chainsaws and excavators for roughly the last century and a half. 100,000 years and only 1 century where you've got power tools that allow you to knock down trees and clear land and create new farmland. Do you know how hard that was back then to have to clear the land without tools? Ain't no women out there trying to knock no trees down without tools. There are no women trying to clear brush without tools. The women will cut the grass. The men will have to knock down the trees. The men will have to take down the bamboo. The men will have to do that. When you have no power tools, only the men, just the men. There will be no women marching out there with us. None. So let's stop this feminist psychobabble fantasy of make-believe that there's some gender roles that can flip-flop and swap out. No, they can't. Only in your minds and imaginations. In practice, your fantasy doesn't exist. It only exists in your head in an academic classroom somewhere. It doesn't exist in the actual real world. It isn't even sci-fi. And it is an insult. It is an insult to pretend that men have not been carrying all the freight all this time and continue to do so to this day. Go to a construction site today. The women are not doing what the men do for the few sites you'll find a woman on. The jobs are there. The women are like, hey, when you men build that high-rise hotel, we'll do housekeeping when the hotel's done. You get out there in them elements and do that. And need to show the proper respect, because this type of gaslighting and deception, you're not fooling anybody. There's the crazy part. You're not fooling anyone. All you're doing is jettisoning your own credibility. Just stick with the facts, man. You know that people know what's going on. You know they can see with their own eyes. Just stick with that. Stop trying to sit up here and bamboozle people. All it does is kill your credibility. Just stick with the facts everybody knows.
Fewer of that peanut butter and chocolate in households. There are now more people not only living alone, but living with their parents than ever before, because they're not establishing this relationship. So it's absolutely bad for women, but typically, women still are economically successful, still find places to put that love, and quite frankly, don't start killing themselves or killing others.
Auntie, chill.
Did he just say that women aren't killing themselves and others? Did he really just say that? I want you all to understand something. In the chat room, Rome, the upsetter, caught onto it immediately. Abortion? Hello? The abortion numbers in black society alone are in the tens of millions. They encourage us to abort our kids and then bring over illegals, and they don't encourage them to get abortions. But by the way, he just sat here and told you that women are less likely to kill themselves and others. So in other words, forget about abortion altogether. We ain't worried about that. That doesn't mean anything. By the way, that doesn't compromise a woman's character. Now, you men, you're bad people, bad behavior.
Absolutely bad for women, but typically, women still are economically successful, still find places to put that love, and quite frankly, don't start killing themselves or killing others.
Folks, I mean, where am I lying at? Tell me where I'm lying or where I'm inaccurate at. They find places to put that love. What does that even mean? I'd like a little more elaboration there. What does that even mean? And they don't kill themselves and others. Excuse me. If they're not killing themselves, it's because of all the antidepressants that they're on. Damn. So notice, if you don't get all the information, people will make statements like that and you'll just go chasing after it. Man, this is the reason why the men today are not having kids, and that includes Professor Galloway. When you can't get people to honestly level with what the situation really is, men are just gonna fall back and be like, okay, yeah, we're okay on that. You just sit there and go ahead and keep running your game. We're gonna go ahead. We're all right on that. We're okay. We're just not gonna follow it. We're all right.
So it's not that it's any less bad, but the knock-on effects tend to be less bad for society.
And I went through the research from the Pew research, but also from the sort of Centers of Disease Control, just to clarify some of these numbers for women as well. And they cement everything you've said. Only 13% of women over 30 were married.
What about abortion?
In 1970, that number has now risen to almost half. The divorce rate for women over 30 has doubled in the past 50 years.
Who files most of the divorces? Who files most of the divorces? Notice what he's not saying. Another word about abortion. Another word about who files most of the divorces. Folks, you cannot have an honest conversation when you have people who are dishonest brokers in the conversation, leaving things out because they're trying to sell something, even if they're just trying to sell an ideology. This is the reason that the young men do not listen to them.
Only 10% of women over 30 were childless. Today, that number has risen to almost 30%. In 1970, only 28% of women over 30 were.
It does that 30% of childless women also count the ones who had abortions? Does that 30% of childless women also cover the ones who have had an abortion? Does it cover them? Does that include them in that number? Or are you talking about the legitimately never had a child females? As I said, this is the reason why these cats don't listen to guys like you. Because when you walk in the door being so nakedly dishonest and disingenuous, yeah, they might watch your video, but they're not gonna follow you or listen to you because they can see, yeah, you're not being honest.
Earning more than their husbands. Today, that number has risen to almost 50%. And in 1970, only 20% of women over 30 were earning more than their husbands. In 1970, only 10% of women over 30 were childless. Today, that number has risen to almost 30%. In 1970, only 28% of women over 30 were earning more than their husbands. Today, that number has risen to almost 50%. And in 1970, only 12% of women over 30 were living alone. Today, that number has risen to 35%. And on the point of loneliness, I was looking at how many men versus how many women have a best friend. And it's multiples more. So, and in 1970, only 12% of women over 30 were living alone. Today, only 28% of women over 30 were earning more than their husbands. Today, that number has risen to almost 50%. And in 1970, only...
I don't think that number there is accurate at all. As a matter of fact, I'm almost certain it's inaccurate. I'm almost certain that's 1,000% inaccurate. So, skewed statistic he's saying about there, because we've already covered that's not true. We've already covered that that's not true. So, they're just saying things. The women are successful. And then we take a look at, okay, then why are the women screaming about student loans? The men are not screaming about student loans nor mortgages. The females are. Why is that?
12% of women over 30 were living alone. Today, that number has risen to 35%. And on the point of loneliness, I was looking at...
How many of those women living alone are divorcees? How many of those women living alone are baby mamas? How many of them living alone are divorcees? How many of them living alone are on antidepressants or untreated mental and emotional issues?
How many men versus how many women have a best friend? And it's multiples more. So multiple more women still have relationships regardless of this state of affairs because they're better at, as you say, forming social connections in...
Women have more friends than men by multiples. Women have more friends. Women don't have friends. Women don't have female friends. Damn sure don't have male friends. Women don't have friends. If you're talking about males, she ain't got no male friends. These are dudes she lay up with. These are bed buddies or friend zoned. Though they're not friends. And if it's other females, we already know what that is. So do you hear the absolute disingenuous, misleading garbage they're saying here? These are things that are flat out untrue. There's a difference between allies and friends. He talking about friends. No, they got allies, not friends.
non-romantic relationships with other women than men are. So it's a pretty bleak picture. And maybe most importantly of all, there's a clear direction of travel here. And if you extrapolate out that direction of travel, we don't get to a good place. Population decline you spoke of, and how that lopsided society, depression, mental health, suicide.
If you were to try and have one answer that would address not all of it, but really take a dent out of obesity, addiction, deaths of despair, male abandonment, divorce, depression, if we raised, and I don't know the numbers here, but if we raised in the United States the minimum wage, if we tripled the minimum wage,
oh, come on,
I think you would go a long way to solving a lot of those problems. I think putting more money in the pockets of young people and reducing the rage and the shame and the deaths of despair would go so far of despair, male abandonment, would address not all of it, but really take a dent out of obesity, addiction, deaths of despair, male abandonment, divorce, depression. If we raised, and I don't know the numbers here, but if we raised in the United States the minimum wage, if we tripled the minimum wage, I think you would go a long way to solving a lot of those problems.
Most countries in the Middle East do not have an obesity issue, Professor Galloway. Sub-Saharan Africa, no obesity issue, Professor Galloway. South America, no obesity issue, Professor Galloway. Also with the divorce, Middle East, no issue, Professor Galloway. Africa, no issue, Professor Galloway. Most of Asia, no issue, Professor Galloway. Russia, no issue, Professor Galloway. Those issues you just named, I can name a bunch of places around the world right now that do not have a minimum wage, that the yearly income is far less than the United States, and don't have the obesity issue, divorce issue, or those social issues you just named, sir. I can name a bunch of places that don't have that. Explain that. How is it that they don't have a minimum wage at all, and they don't have those issues? Oh, in their societies, respecting men isn't optional. Oh, that's the difference. Respecting men isn't optional, therefore the men are okay to extend themselves and sacrifice because they're not questioning whether they're going to be respected for it. And up until the last 60 years, that's what you had here. The last 60 years have been a damn crap show. He's sitting here, understand something. He's saying that if you made triple the minimum wage, we could deal with obesity. What's the correlation? If you don't have as much money, you shouldn't be eating as much. So what I'm saying is they're trying to guess their way through this and fumble and grope at straws instead of saying what he knows the obvious thing is. Hey, men are not going to sacrifice if they're not respected. Men who are not respected, stop trying. Men who are stopped trying, hit the couch, hit the Xbox, hit the anime collection. And instead of saying that society needs to respect the men, that the men can have it all, and then go tell the women what they need to do to be suitable, instead is, well, you men just need to sacrifice some more and have no expectations. And meanwhile, he's not out here in the field trying to make a mate out of any of these females that he's trying to stick up for here. He's not trying to make a mate out of any of them. Professor Galloway, you don't even want them.
I think putting more money in the pockets of young people and reducing the rage and the shame and the deaths of despair would go so far to solving loneliness. I think it's pretty basic. At the end of World War II, the top tax rate was 92%. We just decided rich people are here to reinvest in the middle class. When Reagan entered office and when Thatcher entered office, the top tax rates were about 70%. By the time Reagan left office, it was 27%. What we've seen across studies, University of California, Riverside and UC Berkeley did studies on minimum wage. And in Washington State, California, and New York, where they dramatically raised minimum wage, the incumbents will tell you the sky's going to fall, businesses are going to go out of business, people are going to stop hiring. It's going to expedite them trying to figure out a way to buy the new Burgertron to make burgers, not humans. And what they found was the opposite. that when you increase minimum wage, even dramatically, it grew the economy and jobs. Because here's the wonderful thing.
Okay, what about the obesity rate you just mentioned, Professor Galloway? Let's talk about that. You said obesity and feeling bad and depths of despair. So California doesn't have an issue with obesity. It doesn't have an issue with divorce. It doesn't have an issue with depths of despair. The drug use and antidepressant capital of America? Okay, I thought that's what raising that minimum wage. He says one thing in this. Oh, well, doing that, well, that would help economically. Okay, well, what about the obesity part of it? You just said that. In California, one of the poster childs for those things you just named. Come on, man. We got to be consistent here. You can't just say things and then, okay, we'll just jump around. Instead of just saying the obvious, the sexual revolution was a horrendously bad idea. It never should have been promoted. That has been the catalyst that destroyed everything else. And trying to subjugate the men and shame the men into continuing doing what they've always done while telling the females you can do whatever and the men will continue to foot the bill has failed. You're not going to sit up here and jive talk and sweet talk men. Okay, get back to work over there. That's not going to work, man. It's not working. This strategy is a bum steer, Professor Galloway. It ain't going to work.
About lower and middle income people, when you give them money, they spend it. And so the multiplier effect is more stimulative than when you crowd money into the top 1%.
You know what? When a man is respected, he extends himself for the women and children no matter how much money he makes. Or how little money he makes, Professor Galloway.
Damn!
When a man is respected, he fulfills the roles of protector and provider no matter how much or how little money he makes, because he's receiving something that money can't buy. He's receiving something that has value that transcends money. He's respected. Professor Galloway's not saying a word about that. He's telling the females that they can have it all. And that the men, we just need to get the minimum wage up so the men will work more and do more. He's run out of ideas. Professor Galloway, you don't even want these chicks. You don't even want them. You're not trying to get them. You're not interested in any of them. And it's disingenuous to say the fellas, well, y'all should be lined up without any improvement in quality of the females they would have. The fellas are unmotivated. There's where the issue comes from.
So if a magic wand, first thing, a dramatic increase in minimum wage. And there's very few things we could do that would have this much impact without increasing the deficit. And it's time. We have unemployment at historic lows. So the employment market could absorb an increase in mandatory minimum wage. As a percentage of GDP, wages have never been lower, yet corporate profits have never been greater.
Okay, raising the minimum wage is not going to make females more feminine, more accommodating, more friendly, more selfless. That'll make them more selfish. Raising the minimum wage is not going to do that. Raising the minimum wage is going to reduce obesity. How, Sway? How? So I don't do this tonight to rip Professor Galloway apart. I'm doing this so that we can go ahead and straighten him out on this, because these numbers are horrendous. They're absolutely horrendous. They have terrifying ramifications, not just for an economy, but for a society in general. For a society in general, when you are not going to say the simple truth that feminism has been a disaster, single motherhood has been an apocalypse, and that the men have switched over into survival mode. You're trying to figure out some way to keep the government involved. And what we're saying is that, you know what? If the government were backing men's play, then it would be different. But at the end of the day, what you're saying is that you want the females to have all the advantages and you want the men to man up so the women will live better, and that there's nothing really in it for the men other than some psychic satisfaction. And that's running game. That's why the men don't want kids anymore. They don't want kids anymore because the professors, the academia, the media, the government, the clergy, everybody's lying. They're not admitting what the men are unhappy about. They're not being honest about what it is that the men don't like. They're not just admitting, hey, the men used to be very motivated, but we've screwed things up so much the men no longer are. They don't want to say that. They don't want to say that because the truth of the matter is, understand something, folks. You don't have the middle class today is an advent of two things, a world war and a baby boom. As soon as they came back from World War II and started having kids all over the damn place and whatnot, the government and the corporations immediately went to work calculating how big the economy was going to explode, how much productivity would increase, how much profits were going to explode, how prosperous the society would be. They immediately went to work on that. Immediately after World War II, they were immediately calculating those things. And what they saw was prosperity as far as the eye could see. When they put women to work in World War II, please understand the government and corporations already started calculating how that was going to change the American workplace and how that was going to dramatically alter corporate profits and the national tax base. Now, for black people, we had always been in the petri dish because black women have always had to work. World War II is when you gave white women a swift kick in the ass and told them, you got to work too, heifer. But black women have always had to work. But they were a minority of the population. After World War II, now we finally had the social cover to get white women into the workplace. Then the corporations went to work with advertising and everything else. Mary Tyler Moore. We can go down the list. Why they made it chic. All this social programming, in many cases, there is an argument to be made. One of these days, we're going to get, the CIA has already admitted the CIA makes movies. The CIA is paid for television shows, for movies. So when you see these shows that have these really, social ramifications to them, the Jeffersons, Good Times, everything Norman Lear did, Mary Tyler Moore, 9 to 5. What do you see? What do you see? So you in the middle of that, all that mess going on, you were telling women to go to the office and go to the workplace, work your ass off, this, that, and the other, just in case you had any ideas about leaving the workforce. All right, now let me take you deeper. You all have heard them many times tell you that the majority of the consumer decisions in America in the household, the majority of the consumer decisions in the household are made by the women. Let me explain to you what that means and then put that in the context of why the men don't want kids anymore, and also dovetail off of this long-standing misnomer and myth about married men making more money. Married men do not make more money. They simply spend more money, but they don't make more money. All right, when you hear them tell you that women make most of the consumer decisions in the home, they don't mean that. I want you to understand, with these academics, when they say that, they don't mean what you think they mean. You think they mean that the women go to the grocery store and pack up the wagon and buy all the stuff and come home with it, this, that, and the other. That's not what they mean. That's a part of it, but that's not what they mean. What they mean is that females influence the consumer decisions in the household, starting with the decision to purchase or not to purchase. Now, understand what that word we mentioned there means. Women influence the decision. So for all you dudes in here who have living girlfriends or been married, the woman runs up to you talking about, we need this, we need that, we need dishwashing liquid, we need this, that, and the other. You don't even go to check to see whether or not there's still any even there. All right, here's a credit card, bye. If she says you're out of eggs, if she says you're out of toilet paper, if she says you're out of this, that, and the other, you don't even check on it. Advertisers, corporations, the government, they've known that. That's what they mean by influence, that if the women run up to the average man and tell him, we need to buy XYZ, that's usually a very powerful factor in getting him to go along with it, whether it is a small consumer item or a large durable good. Whether it's eggs in the refrigerator or the whole refrigerator itself. Single men don't buy houses because men can count. That's why men don't buy houses. The math doesn't make any sense. Meanwhile, most of the men today sitting up under some oppressive, confiscatory mortgage are doing so because the female that they are with told him that that's what she wanted, or quote, that's what we need. Those are not decisions driven by the men. Those are decisions driven / influenced by the women. Consumer decisions. So it goes beyond whether the idea that your woman's just sitting at home and she sees some Dawn dishwashing liquid commercials on television. And, ooh, we need dishwashing liquid. It goes well beyond that. Well beyond that. A decision that a man would want to wait 3 or 4 years to make. The female, being emotionally driven, she demands you make that decision now. She demands you go in on it now. So instead of you getting the 20% that you need in order to be able to put for a down payment on a home, it'll take you 5 more years to save it up, while she tells you that she wants to have a better house than her mama, and she don't see why you shouldn't have that, and a real man would make sure I had that. A real man would make sure. A real man would do that. So you end up making a change that you ordinarily would not have made. So off you go to work, you're working overtime, you take out a second job, and you instead save up 10% or less, because there are some crazy mortgage companies out there that allow that still, even though they shouldn't be. And you're putting the bare minimum down on a house simply so you can attempt the futile effort at placating her. A decision that you know does not make good financial sense. A decision that you know is not financially advantageous. But because she is pressuring you and nagging you, you're going to make a bad decision. Influenced by her consumer decision. Oh, no wonder when you go to the car lot with a female, the salesmen are watching y'all like a hawk. No wonder. No wonder when you want a mortgage and they see a female and you're paying less than 20%. Oh, they know they're going to close this sale because they know that the numbers don't make sense for a man. It must be the female who's influencing you, i.e. pressuring you to make this decision, to go off into this knowing that the odds are against you. There are a bunch of fellas right now bought cars they never should have bought. Not for themselves, but to attempt to keep a female happy. I didn't say make her happy. I said keep her happy. So when they discuss the consumer decisions, that's who they mean. Now they're going to work telling the women, particularly black women specifically, but but women in general, that, oh, you strong and independent. Do you know what they're really saying? What they're really saying is, hey, ladies, if the men won't keep this educational industrial complex of student loan debt going, if the men will not keep this bloated automotive debt industry going, if the men will not keep the real estate mortgage debt business going, well, no mind, ladies, you can do it yourself. As a matter of fact, we'll rejigger this mortgage over here to make it where you can afford to pay for this. And as men, we understand that that's a trick bag because that's the only thing it could be. As men, we understand that. That's the reason why you see so few today walking off into those binding permanent situations. Folks have been trying to convince you to do that. Now they're just saying we need to pressure you to do that because they're running out of people to sit up here and get that game over on. The men are not going for it. The men are not going for it. I want to show you something here. I want to show you something. And I want you to go ahead and take a look at one thing on here in particular. This is from CNN. Take a look on your screens. And I want you to take a look at the new way under the sun. Take a look on your screens and behold a frightening new specter that has come jumping off the porch. Your Humpty eyes do not deceive you. You want to talk about women and home ownership, Professor Galloway? Can you talk about this part, sir? Please remember, y'all haven't seen these other YouTubers talking to you about this. Don't even start your lying. Before you even start lying, just tuck it in and suck it up. You ain't got to like the fact that the man with the black book was the one who dropped this on you all first. Now, I talked about this 5 years ago. I was the guy who said it over a decade ago that the retirement amount you need is $2 million. Now, Susie Orman and the rest of them finally caught up to me over a decade later. Only now I'm saying actually that number's not $2 million anymore. That number's actually closer to $3 million now. They're behind me. Well, guess what? You used to be doing good if you could get a 30-year mortgage. Now they are creeping into the environment 40-year mortgages. I mean, just letting it roll off the tongue. Now, I want you to think about one thing right here. Something that Professor Galloway won't consider, because when you have an ideology speaking, it's not allowing you to think rationally because you're trying to push the ideology. You're not trying to push realistic facts. People, how many viable working years does a person have?
Damn!
If you start working at the age of 20, and if you take out a 40-year mortgage at the age of 25, you will be 60. You will have paid your entire working life. You'll be 65 years old. You will have paid your entire working life. You would have spent on that one house the whole time. Folks, This is along with your 401k and along with your IRA. This is right alongside that. While Professor Galloway is breaking his arm, patting the females on the back for this, you call this smart financing? You call this intelligent economics? Men call this crazy. This number does not make any damn sense. You'd have to be a deep, fat, fried fool to sit up here and go for that. And they'll sit up here, the females will be sitting here in the mortgage office with them sitting up here selling them game on that. Well, of course, ma'am, you certainly can do a 40-year mortgage. Of course you can. And then looking at the men crazy because we're not walking off into that. And then you wonder why we got more wealth than the females and we consistently retain more wealth than the females unless that man gets himself into a situation where somebody else starts making the consumer decisions for him. Then now he finds himself behind the 8 ball. Now he finds himself having to increase the number of hours he works so he'd increase the income that he makes so that he can shoulder all this burden. And then you wonder why the men today don't want to have kids. Then you wonder why the men today are not the least bit interested in walking off into that socioeconomic meat grinder. Actually, you don't wonder why it is. You know exactly why it is. You know exactly why that is. However, you might disagree. Therefore, if you want to call me up here, we've gone ahead and pinned the Zoom link into the chat room. So you are welcome to go ahead and dial us up there. I want to thank everyone who has contributed to support tonight's program on PayPal, Super Chat, Venmo there in the Super Chat. We got new members, Black First, Grammy codes. Yeah, grandma codes. Okay, granny codes. Level of Love podcast. Everybody else here, thank you very much for your support. Young Investor, Chief Rocket, Anwar Williams, GMAC 2. Everybody else, Mika 40. Thank you very much for your support here. I'm doing a nice program here about why men don't want kids anymore. This has very stark, frightening ramifications for society because no matter how invincible you all want to tell yourselves you are, eventually at some point you are going to reach a point where you can't work anymore. And no matter how able you might be, if you went to Walmart, you are depending on somebody else's children to work at that job and service that store. You're only going to be in there for 30 minutes. They got to be running that place for the other 23 and a half hours of the day. All day, every day. Everything in your society. You're walking into hotels that you didn't build. Walmart stores and grocery stores that you didn't stock. Crops that you didn't pick. I can go down the list. You do only one thing. You're depending on other people's children in the society to take care of all these other things and to have those ready and available when you get there. You didn't rotate the tires on your car, balance them. You didn't do those things. Somebody else's kids had to be there. And if you have a population that is falling, then by definition, there are not other people's kids there to service this stuff when you need it. That's the problem. You're not an island unto yourself. It is dependent on other people working in concert. The larger the numbers are, the more of a cushion that you have to prop that up. The lower the numbers are, the less you have to prop that up. And if all you have are a bunch of little old ladies and little old males running around here, that's going to leave a lot of robust stuff that ain't going to get done. That's going That's not just an economy in decline, that's a nation in decline. Whether you like it or not, your nation is only as strong as the next generation coming up after you. But if you have an incompetent next generation, or even worse, none at all, then you're staring apocalypse down the barrel. Here's the problem. You want all this talk you've given about you can't make women have children, because there's the crazy part about that right there. You've made the women so narcissistic and self-absorbed, they ain't really trying to even have sperm donors like that necessarily. They're too busy taking selfies of themselves. And then when everything now is about gaslighting and tricking the females, because here's the issue. You can go off and you can do a whatever the hell her face is, Williams, and you can go have some sperm donor kids, yeah, but you're going to have to raise it by your damn self. So the government doesn't care how you get pregnant so long as you go ahead and do it, because they know you going to have to carry the damn freight. You're going to have to do that. Yeah, they'll sweet talk you into that mess, and then you'll spend the rest of your life sitting up here complaining about how difficult it is and how hard it is, and you're by yourself. You've served your purpose. You've kept the machine going. You fed the machine. You fed the machine and you kept the machine going. They don't care if it's a male or a female, though they prefer males because males work harder, males work longer, males do the really big stuff that females cannot do. So they seriously prefer to have males. But if the females drop the load, we'll see if we can grab a couple of bastard kids, even if we got to take them out of prison. So long as somebody is cranking out the workforce, they don't care the circumstances under which you had them. And after they trick you into putting yourself in a trick bag by having the children under disadvantageous circumstances, they don't care that you're a single mom. They don't care that you're by yourself. They don't care that you're tugging it on your own. Oh, well, they got what they wanted. See, y'all got to understand, there's a private sector incentive and there's a government incentive. Yeah, they want taxes, but I've had to warn you all before. The United States, being a superpower, is built on two things: its economy and its military. And the military is not able to recruit the numbers that it needs anymore. It is below its preferred recruitment levels. They don't care where the bodies come from. What they do know is they need them. So you see, cranking out those kids, it doesn't matter how smart or dumb your kids are. Uncle Sam's Army can take college graduates and it can take nitwits from juvenile hall. Militaries have always operated that way. So you can be out here in the private sector and pay your taxes. You can buy the soap, buy the Legos, buy the car. You're serving the private sector. You're paying taxes or going to the military. Now you're serving the government. In the chat room, guess who won? You can go ahead and give me a call up here on Zoom. Very good question there. Since you asked that question, I'll go ahead and give you 2 minutes here to go ahead and give us a call on Zoom since you've had that question. No reason we can't get you an answer straight away. We'll give them 2 minutes on that. Some of these folks here need to be educated about that, because this is important. This is important because as men, it is our job to safeguard the society. Guess who won? If you're sick, you shouldn't be in the chat room typing anything if you're sick. You should be too sick to type or say. If you're too sick to speak, then you're too sick to type. So, you need to leave the chat room. You're done typing. If you're too sick to talk, you're too sick to chat. So the next thing you say will get you blocked. So what you can do is voluntarily leave the chat room. You had your chance. If you're not going to call up and say it, then you don't get to type either. You're too sick to talk, then you're too sick to type. Welcome to the world of adulthood. We're talking tonight about why it is that men don't want to have any more children. Professor Scott Galloway was wrong on several fronts here. One of the things that he mentioned in another video is about men and women. And men can have feminine traits, women can have masculine traits. Here's the problem here. Men don't want women who have masculine traits. The only semi-masculine trait that men are looking for is loyalty. We're not looking for masculine traits from a female. We ain't looking for it. It looks like Guess Who might have decided to go ahead and join us here. We'll see about that. All right, Guess Who? We're not going to put you on camera, but I do need you to turn the light on just so we can make sure we don't have a trolling situation. So I'm not going to put your camera on. I'm not going to put your face up for everybody to see you, but I do need you to turn that light on for me. So I'm going to give you 10 seconds to go ahead and resolve that real quick. It'll be just you and me. Nobody else is going to see you except me. But just to make sure we don't have any trolling situation, just need to make sure we have the light on. All right, Guess Who? By all means, you had a question to ask me, please.
It was just that. It's just why do you discuss this all the time?
Okay, that is, by the way, that is a beautiful bonnet you have on your head. Where did you buy that from?
Sir.
Okay, I will get one for one of my girlfriends when it's their birthday. I can get one for one of them. Actually, I have to buy like a 3-pack of them.
Give me some grace.
I'll have to buy a 3-pack of them. So, anyway, you asked a question, ma'am.
Call up when I'm looking better.
Okay, well, I'm listening. No, you asked a question.
I was just curious. I mean, we have these discussions all the time. It's like,
okay, baby, can you do me a favor? Can you take that wireless earbud out, because I can barely hear anything you're saying at all. Like I can't even make out what you're saying. It's breaking up real bad. Okay, try holding that thing closer to your mouth or something, because it's not I'm not hearing it all the way over there on the side of your head. This is what happens when they try to go get the off-brand Apple earbuds. They try to get the off-brand ones there, y'all. She didn't get the Apple ones. She got the peaches. So it's not the Apple earbuds, it's the peaches ones. Anyway, what you asked though was, who was this for and would it make a difference?
Yeah, I was just curious if you listen, you know.
Okay, well let me ask you a question. Do you think it doesn't?
I just don't know. I was asking a question.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put her back in the waiting room there. She can go ahead and drop off. So we need to take some donations because she couldn't get the Apple earbuds. So she got the potato earbuds. She didn't have the Apple earbuds. She got the tomato earbuds. I guess she figured, well, an apple's red and tomatoes are red, ain't they? Can we? Ain't that about the same? No, baby, they're the same color, but that's about what it is. They're both fruits, aren't they? Apple red, tomato red. All right, so y'all, we're gonna see if we can take a collection here to upgrade them tomato earbuds to some Apple earbuds. But she asked a good question there. Let me go ahead and address that right quick. Jason, who is this for and does it make a difference? All right. Yes. Yes, it does. Because the conversation that we're having today is radically different than the conversation we were having 20 years ago. There was a whole bunch of whining and a whole bunch of hair pulling. But the conversation we're having today is radically different. We literally spent the last 50 years talking about Oprah, Dan Winfrey, and every other psycho whack job out there that got us into this mess. We are finally discussing how to get out of it. We're finally talking about what's really wrong. And the real issue is, here's the truth of it. The real issue is, with as much stroke as they allegedly got in this, that, and the other, Professor Galloway, if you were really hitting on it, the fellas would be listening to you on that front. You can't say things that are directly contrary to their lived experiences, pretend that there's some Svengali on the internet putting thoughts in their heads. That's not what it is. Respect the men more and say, hey, this is what they actually see. Let me tell you how you lose in politics. The way that you lose in politics is you attempt to convince the voter that what the voter wants isn't really what they want. That what the voter said is wrong or is a problem isn't really wrong and isn't really a problem. If the voter tells you this is a problem and I'm worried about it and something needs to be done, if the voter has a problem with it, you better have a problem with it. If the voter thinks it's a problem, you better think it's a problem. That's not what's happening with the men. The men are telling everybody what the problem is, and the folks from academia and the government are saying, oh, that's not really a problem. The problem is you not going along with the program. As opposed to, that's really a problem. It is a problem. Ignoring it, gaslighting, talking past it, that's not gonna fix it. You guys need to give up on this failed ideology that you're gonna shame the next generation of males into ignoring what they're living. That we're gonna omit facts, we're gonna omit necessary information, and these young fellows won't catch on. What makes a difference? What makes a difference is young men are asking about abortions now. Professor Scott Galloway comes from the baby boomer generation. If a chick had 5 abortions and 8 bastard kids, they just load you and all them kids up in the minivan. He would go out and go work harder to go buy a minivan to go take care of her kids by somebody else. He considers it to be unfathomable that the bastard children of the baby boomers don't want to raise somebody's bastard kids.
Alrighty then.
That's what he's truly in disbelief about. He can't understand. Wait a minute, the brainwashing didn't take? How can you be a bastard kid and you got a problem with that? He doesn't understand how that could be, because he would have gone for it and he would have done it. He just would have worked harder. He would have just gone out and bought a bigger minivan, a bigger house, more debt, 4 decades of mortgage. And he's a divorcee himself. And he would have just said, okay, well, what's wrong with that? He doesn't get it that, hey, you're not going for it. You're not going for that. I know Professor Galloway was raised by a single mother too, but he doesn't understand why it is the young men of today would see that as a negative. It's like, oh, no. That we don't want to walk off into that. That's what I mean by out of touch. And I'm not being denigrating. You all know I respect Professor Galloway, but on this subject right here, yeah, dude, you don't get to talk past these young men's experiences and projecting onto them. This is what they need to do and it's their obligation. No, you need to speak to them about the incentive for them the same way you speak to the females. If the females can have it all, then it needs to be, okay, fellas, you can have it all. And it's not a negative. Here's the issue. The issue is that what they don't want to accept is that males today are learning how the game is played and are pushing it to their advantage when they can. Fellas like me are also informing them / educating them on how to play the game and not let the game play them. When you run off and have kids with a female who's not worthy of it, it will not end well. It cannot end well. It won't end well financially, and it absolutely will not end well socially. You can sit up here and grab somebody's bad situation and bad baggage, but the return on the investment will be awful. Let me go ahead and get over here on Zoom. I got Daniel over here on Zoom. What's on your mind, Daniel?
Ah, damn it. Hello?
Yes, Daniel, you're on.
How you doing? Yeah, I'm from New Jersey, Irvington, New Jersey. I just want to give you an update. It's been a little bit over 6 months.
Please.
Oh, yeah, so I got a better job, a better trucking job. I do trucking CDO. I got a better job, way better pay. Been here for about like 3 weeks. So things are looking up. The first year was kind of hard. And then my previous company kind of lied to me. I went to regional and it was a pay cut, actually. I thought it was going to be a pay increase. So I'm at this job now. I'm getting things together. And I took your advice he told me just not to move with my parents, stay by myself and figure things out. And I think that was a good decision so far. So I'm just programming, still navigating my way in the trucking industry right now. But everything's going good so far. I just want to keep you updated on that.
Now, for somebody else, I might have told them to be with their parents. In your situation, that was not a good situation for you.
Mm-hmm.
That was the reason I said that. In your case, that was actually not a good situation. It was not productive. It was not helpful. It actually, you'd be better off doubling your output to try to stay in a situation that is more socially and mentally stable. That was the reason I said that, because that situation there they were not as constructive as they needed to be. And that's the reason I said that. For somebody else, I would have told them the opposite. In your case, that's why I said something different.
Yeah, and that was actually a good decision because things started to get a little bit hectic. But it was very good because I still managed to still get respect from my folks. And it was a way better all around situation for me. And everything you're saying today was right on about the interest rates. Housing is crazy. I'm from New Jersey. In the hood, this house is going for almost $500,000. It's ridiculous. And it's kind of scary in a way that, because if I want to get into property, how's that? Unless you have your income up, you leveling your income up, it's a scary world right now.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you add into it tax rates. New Jersey is crazy about that as well also. So it's not advantageous. You all have to do a lot more planning, a lot more forward thinking. You're going to have to be a lot more strategic. You have a lot more headwinds. I'm just the guy who's not pretending that those things are not there. I'm treating them like they're actually there. I mean, even $400,000, that's astronomical. That's astronomical. Even if a person makes $80,000 a year, that's half your damn income over the course of a decade.
Oh, yeah.
Over the course of a decade, that is half of your gross income. Half of it. That's outrageous. That's unreasonable. And that's literally where y'all are, with folks trying to tell you how much more you need to do. So that's why I'm telling you all, your strategizing has to be different. You're going to have to move differently about that. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's fair. It is horrendous. The old bastards who got y'all into this are not going to lift a damn finger to help y'all. They want to ride out and they want you all to finance it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Oh, no, for sure. I did have one question, though, regarding this personal question. Like my parents are mostly they're education people. I'm not gonna lie. My dad, master's, PhD. He went through the whole shebans in school and right now. And for me, I was in school for bio. Then I realized the max I was gonna make is 60, 70,000 with a bio degree. So I said I need to get out. It's not worth it for me to make 60, 70 and wait 4 or 5 years in my 30s to make that. But I do sometimes feel like, not saying in between the way, because I know my parents, they're from Africa, so education is a big thing for them. And how can I say? For me personally, I was thinking about going back to school in the future, but the way I'm seeing things, like unless you go into STEM, it's not really worth it. So it was just an internal conflict within myself between probably making my parents proud. I don't know what it is. That's what I think mentally. That's what I think. So
Okay,
I
well,
do have an internal conflict.
First of all, in the chat room, guess who in the chat room? She said she can find you a good wife, so I think she's trying to throw her bid in.
Alrighty then.
Yeah, what she say? He sounds like he young and got some benefits. So she said, let me make this bonnet do what it do. She said, let me put this bonnet to work. But like I say, look, first thing I'm going to tell you here is the things that work for you all as parents are not the things that will work for you. The landscape today is radically different. So you can't really look at them as a template for what you can expect. Your results are going to differ. Your mileage will vary. STEM is a great thing, is a nice thing, is a wonderful thing. Here's my thing about this. I'm much more interested in you choosing something that is viable and sticking with it. Please understand, cash is king. I don't care what you do for a living as long as you remember cash is king. So I don't care if you're working STEM and then you go spend a bunch of money. The bottom line is I don't care what you're doing for a living. How much of your income are you retaining? How much are you saving? That is going to determine where your future goes, is your ability to store your wealth. Jumping from one career field to another is one thing if you do it once. If you've done it 2 times, you've done it once too many. So please keep that in mind. So I'm not going to tell you necessarily that you cannot, but there are a number of factors that would come into play for me. How old are you again?
I'm 28 now.
I mean, you're 28 years old, so definitely it could be viable. But if you were going to make that jump, it needs to happen once. But let me explain to you why you do it. Young man, the most important thing that a man will do in his life is choose his purpose. Sure. I had to teach the red pill this, Kevin Samuels and the rest of them. I had to teach everybody, no, the most important thing is not the quality of woman. That's the second most important thing. The most important decision that you as a man in your life will ever make is your purpose. What it is that you're going to dedicate your life to. That will not be a woman. That will not be children. They will be the heirs and the beneficiaries and successors of it. Your purpose in life will be the most important thing that you make a choice over.
For sure.
Because that is what you will dedicate your blood, sweat, and years to, and everything else is a beneficiary of it. That also includes, nobody else can be considered in that equation, including your parents. There is only one thing that you owe your parents, and that is to be the best you can be at whatever it is you choose. But that is it. It stops there. You're not here to be a replica of your father. Hopefully, character-wise, lineage-wise, hopefully he was an honorable man. Got that part. But as far as pleasing the parents or whatever, brother, let me tell you, there's nobody who will tell you otherwise. That becomes, if you make that a goal, that becomes a moving target.
No, that is true. That is true.
Because if you sat down and asked them what would make them proud of you, it's going to be a very vague, amorphous answer. Now, do you have kids?
Oh, no.
Okay. Well, I want you to think about this for just a moment. Imagine just a moment, if you will, if you had a daughter. Mm-hmm. And your daughter is just turned 21 years old. Got it?
Roger that.
And your daughter came to you and said, Daddy, before I go to college, I want to ask you, what degree should I pursue that will make you proud of me? What would you tell her? Well, baby, I'm proud of you. You go to STEM. You go to biology, I ain't gonna be very, very proud of you. You know, you go to some kind of sociology, I ain't gonna be proud of you right there. I mean, well, if you take up engineering, I'd be kind of proud of you there. What would you say?
Well, I'm mature now. I'll just say go to a career that's going to be viable, but also do something that's in your skill set. Like
that was not what I asked you. I said, she said, Daddy, What degree do you think I should pursue that will make you proud of me?
Yeah. Typical doctor, lawyer. Not gonna lie. Like if I
Okay,
had
so,
to just from ego standpoint, like just those fake degrees.
okay, but I want you to see the logical fallacy there. So if she pursues being a doctor or a lawyer, you would be proud of her. And if she pursues psychology or sociology, you would be unproud of her. Correct?
For this standpoint, I see where you're coming from.
So your esteem for your daughter would not be connected to a degree. Her degree did not make you proud of her, and the lack of it wouldn't make you unproud of her. Lack of a work ethic might do that. Making some crazy screwball ass reckless decisions might do that. But the degree isn't what did it. That degree, if she's a lowlife, that degree isn't going to make you proud of her. She got 6 kids by 6 different niggas, but she got a PhD. His PhD as a doctor. You still proud?
No.
What do you say? You should have kept the damn degree and get rid of them kids. These niggas you was with. Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So the things that make you proud of your kids are not actually attached to their degrees. It's some of these intangibles. The degree should be a product of whatever it is about them that you're proud of.
That is true.
The degree is just supposed to be, if you've done your job, the degree is a side effect.
No, that is true.
They can get a degree in anything because you've made them a person who can get one. The person who can get one is what you're proud of.
No, that is true. I think I'm speaking from ego and just knowing, like, sometimes when you're on the road, you get a lot in your head most of the time. Like, I go away for sometimes 3-4 weeks at a time. So sometimes that gets in your head, like, not saying am I good enough, but, you know.
Look, the bottom line is if you all want your vocations or your jobs to make your parents proud, understand something. People are proud of one thing, a person who could do something that they could not or did not do. If you are in the top 10% of what you do, they'll have no choice but to be, because you're excelling.
That is true.
You're in the trucking business, you become an owner operator with 3 trucks. That might seem small in the business. That's huge to your parents. They've never seen it.
Yeah, that's
that
true.
One thing alone right there. You know, you become a doctor. Okay, being a doctor is cool, but that a GP, specialist in cardiology. He's the head cardiologist at UCLA. Oh, they can't even tell you what you do. But they know that you're at the top of they know you're the head of your department at UCLA, and they don't even know what you do.
That's true. Now, going back to what you said, I remember this broadcast that you said, like, if you're going to go to the truck industry, you got to go all the way. And I think it's just more of a fear aspect of, I'm just starting out. I'm just focused on paying off debt, stacking money right now. But in the future, I'm like, just a nervous standpoint was like, if I do start this, will I be successful? And because, you know, and especially in the truck industry, you see a whole lot of, you know, truckers complain or, you know, they talk about it's nothing happening. So it's viability, you start thinking like, dang, will I make it? I'm thinking probably too far down the future, but.
Okay, well, let me go ahead and deal with that right quick, because this comes up, this has come up lately, and I'm pretty sure it's the same thing, because I deal with this all the time. Because there are misnomers out there. All right, the trucking industry in particular. You have 2 types of truck drivers, the ones who believe in making the wheels turn and earn, and the ones who are trying to they've been in the game long enough, they think the game owes them something. So they make just enough runs to get their beer and their cigarettes, and they're expecting the landscape to get easier as time goes on. So they get greater and greater gains with the same amount or less work because they feel like the game owes them because of how long allegedly they've been out there. That's what I see. And yes, I do know there have been some carriers that have closed and this, that, and the other. I mean, that's part of the business, that kind of thing, consolidation. Those things are always happening. The internet always tries to make it seem like it's the first time. Please. It is not. Trucking's not going anywhere, but I will tell you right now, it's a competitive environment. And it will remain a competitive environment. Guess what? Wherever there's money involved, it's going to be a competitive environment. especially when there's certain barriers to entry that are not really high barriers. It's going to be competitive. You're going to compete or you won't. So there's a lot of folks who will say things and they're not really being competitive. You're 28 years old, and the fact that what I told you has worked out for you over the course of a year, I'll let that speak for itself in that regard. If your work ethic is there, everything else comes from that. Now, I don't want you making rash decisions. I don't want you making impulsive decisions. You need to plan out things carefully. So far, it sounds like you're doing that. Okay, he's got some debts. He wants to pay those off. He needs to get some money saved up. That's prudent thinking. I would never send you out to go purchase a 18-wheeler and you haven't gotten yourself together for that first, because you need to be prepared for what happens after you've bought it, not just to buy it.
No, for sure.
That's preparation. That's due diligence.
Now, going back to the old heads, you're really right, because most of the time I hear people complain about the industry, or they're saying something it's like an older person, like his 40s, 50s, 40s or 50s and late 40s, 50s, and they saying how, they feel like the industry has done them wrong. But part of it, I start thinking, like, probably you made the wrong choices, bad financial decisions, most likely, because if you on the road, you're doing what to do, you'll make decent money, and you're not really spending it. You're in the truck, unless you're going out, you're not really spending it. So there's something is sometimes I'll put, but sometimes, those things can get in your head when you hear somebody talking about, I've been here 20 years, all I got is a condo. They just talking crazy. Sometimes that does get in your head, like, did I make the right decision?
Well, I mean, it goes beyond that, though. I mean, a lot of these guys, they got kids, they got a wife or a second wife or whatever. They chase lot lizards and so on and so forth. They've been in the game for years or decades, and they've lost the plot. This is the thing here, that when you start paper chasing, you got to keep going. You don't get to get in it. And then in the old days, when the Teamsters really ran things, it was easier. But you're going back to that baby boomer stuff. Well, yeah, a house was $50,000. Them days are gone. So if you are still holding on to those misnomers of a bygone era, then you're going to be in a bad situation, because you don't see the world for what it really is. So the level of effort you're willing to put in is not keeping pace with the competitive environment. On top of that, you've been out there so long, you actually start now thinking that the industry owes you something. I shouldn't have to do X, Y, Z. So therein lies the problem. You cats are going to do okay in these environments, but I'm just letting you know, you younger guys actually have some advantages that these older guys don't have, because I think a lot of them, they're out there so long, and that's why I want y'all to not really spend time around them, because the first thing I want you to ask yourselves is whether or not these are guys that you want to emulate and you want to be like. When y'all take a look at them, I think in many cases here, you all realize that these are not really cats y'all want to be like.
For sure.
He might be cool people. He's a law-abiding citizen, bro. Law-abiding citizens don't pay the bills.
No, that's facts. Yeah, because especially on the road, like, I think I'm thinking too far ahead. But, I'm like managing relationships, family, and all this when you wait for 2 weeks. And I understand doing it for a time period, but I see people that have been doing it for 20, 30 years, and they really don't got anything to show for it. That's what kind of put fear in my heart, because I'm like, I don't want to be like that. It's only 30 years in the game, don't have anything to show for it. It's like that. For me, I think that's crazy. And
do you know how much work it takes to be in something for 2-3 decades and have nothing to show for it? Do you know how much work that takes? And they're always going to give you the same story, that they did everything right. No, they did everything right. They did everything correct. And, like I say, it's a misnomer. When you all start looking into it, you're going to realize, yeah, actually they didn't. And that's really what it is. So you're doing okay in that regard there. Most importantly is getting your experience under you. And as long as you keep focused on that, you're going to be doing okay.
Okay. Roger that. Now, thank you very much for the input. And I'll keep you updated 6 months from now or a year. Okay. About what's going on. Thank you very much.
Check back in with me. Thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. In the chat room there, Mr. Pullins, you need to click the Zoom link, sir. The Zoom link is at the top of the chat, whether you're on desktop, laptop, cell phone, tablet. The link is there. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to insist that we speak with you. Those kind of things are important right there because that's manhood training also. By the way, hey, just a brief reminder here. Professor Galloway, that's the kind of thing that these cats need. That's the kind of thing these young fellas need. They don't actually need to have no chick hugged up under them. They don't really need to have a chick pushing them or whatever. They need to be around some men. They need to be around some men who've been there, done that, been through some things, gonna hold him to a standard. There's no sexual energy in the room, just masculine expectations that we tell him, because a female can't drive that truck for him. A female ain't gonna change them tires for him. A female's not gonna carry the load for him. He's gonna be out there by himself. However it gets done, he's gonna have to do that. He's gonna have to do that. He will. That's just the bottom line. He's going to have to make that happen. So he's going to have to be cultivated to be a person who is motivated to do that, to take that on, to isolate himself, to stay focused, to be I with nobody around him. If you're only motivated, if a man is only motivated by sex, then he's going to live a very low life because there's always some scumbag female somewhere who's willing to do that. Always. Always. If he allows that to be his motivation, man, he's going to be in trouble. He needs to be with himself. He needs to be with himself. And when he sits among other men and stands among other men and they say, okay, this is what we do, that reinforcement is going to come from other men. That's going to come from other men. He needs to have other men reassure him of what he's capable of, that he can do it under trying circumstances. He needs to have that. Okay, Chris is not going to be joining us for the rest of his life. TG in the chat room. TG in the chat room needs to go ahead and click the Zoom link and give us a call up here. We'll give TG a couple of minutes here to go ahead and do that. So TG needs to go ahead and hit the Zoom link for me. That's going to be important. And by the way, we're having a teaching moment here. We're having a teaching moment here. One of the things in particular that we need to have as men have to have standards. And one of the whole reasons I'm doing a nice program here about why men don't want kids is because there's a lot of information that's not actually information. It's just people giving misinformation based on their feelings. I don't have feelings about it one way or the other. Notice I have not sat up here and said what the women need to be doing in XYZ. I can say, ladies, you can do this, whatever. I didn't say that you're, quote, wrong for wanting that, but just understand whatever you want, there's going to be a cost. Don't be surprised if all these other people have told you that you can have what you want and there's not a cost. There is always a cost. If you want something, there's always going to be a cost to it. Right now, what we said is that the men should keep wanting to be father knows best. And meanwhile, we should sit up here and bang out a bunch of kids by a bunch of sloppy, low-down females, not even good highbrow ones. That's not being honest. That's not motivating. What Professor Galloway wants to say is that the men need to be doing more and need to be trying harder. Absolutely. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. But there needs to be something that's worth doing that for. The first thing we do is teach them to do that for themselves. But if you want a man to extend himself for females or children, Well, there has to be a pretty good reward for that too. Not a pat on the back from somebody, hey, thanks for doing your part to fuel the great American economy. That's not a reward. That's not a reward. By the way, I don't have TG up here yet, so I'm going to give him another minute or two to be on Zoom. If he's not, we'll just assume that he's in the chat room trolling. So TG, we are waiting on you here. We'll give you another minute for that. We'll give you another minute for that. Professor Galloway also made an observation about something that he said he didn't like. He said that most of the males out here today, you have so many males out here today who are not having sex. This is catastrophic numbers because fellas need that, XYZ. I'm like, okay, if the female's not going to service them, then what? If they're not going to service them, then what are you saying here? And he said that's producing the most dangerous type of male that you can. Males who are isolated, alone, sexually frustrated. Here's the issue, Professor Galloway. The problem isn't that men today, boys today are too dangerous. Precisely the opposite. The problem is that the males are losing their assertiveness. And that is what's killing them. The issue isn't that we have too many dangerous males, although what you don't want are temperamental, erratic, uncontrollable males. The problem isn't that you have too many dangerous ones. Go ask the military. Go ask the Marine Corps if we have too many dangerous males. You have a bunch of screaming, squealing mama's boys, but they're not going to tell you that they have too many dangerous males. Let's talk about why the males have walked away. I'm saying males because whether they're grown men or not, let's talk about why they walked away here. Men are adventurous by nature. Men are adventurous by our very nature. This is why men have abandoned college. They're striking out in a new direction. They're not afraid to go and blaze a path of their own. Though women are taking the path of least resistance. That's why they're chasing degrees. Because some well-meaning people, but many not well-meaning people just taking advantage of folks, that's what they're doing. They're doing that. And as a result, what they're doing is misleading the females. The women are going off and grabbing degrees and cars and house notes that they cannot actually afford. And all the burdens that come along with it. The males are not following them. The males are not following them because the men are adventurous and they realize, that's not going to work. The males are not afraid to go up the path less traveled. The men are still not afraid of adventure and are seeking out their own path in life. For the women, seeking their own path is watching Instagram and following somebody in the Nobu. But the men are looking for their own pathway, not one predetermined by a social order that's failed them. The other thing is when you use words like misogynistic, that's a cop-out. You can't say that men are misogynistic and simultaneously say they don't want kids, and that's misogynistic too. You're talking past yourself. You're contradicting yourself. That's not a negative thing. Men saying that this is what they want and that being honored, that's not a negative thing. That is actually asserting it because what you are doing is setting up clearly defined boundaries. See, the issue here is that we've produced nice men. Professor Galloway's a nice guy. We've produced nice men that cater to the broken single mother culture that created all this in the first place. And now you're going to criticize these males when they grow into men for not being able to overcome that contaminated environment. You cannot tell males to be protectors and providers if their females are competing against them to provide for themselves. Professor Galloway, you're missing the math. You're missing the math. You're talking to the wrong audience. You need to go over there to the females and tell them men cannot be protectors and providers if you are competing against them to be protectors and providers. Do not expect the men to compete against you. If you break out running and say, I can do this myself, the men are not going to chase you around. Not the betas will, but the real men are not going to chase. The men you actually want are not going to chase you around and attempt to convince you that you should not be competing against him. They're not going to do that. Because here's the crazy part. They'll go off and get their master's degree and this, that, and the other and go work some funky ass job somewhere making $60,000 a year, talking about she has a career. And as soon as that happens, when she gets with a man, she doesn't want to keep working. She says, I don't want to work at all. Imagine that. When they actually have a chance to get a man, they don't want to double down on the work anymore. Okay, then why did you all try to convince them to get into that in the first damn place? That the second they get a man, okay, I want to stop working. What are you telling the men? Okay, I want you to carry the load for everything in a world that is more expensive than it's ever been. This idea that men are supposed to be just this endless resource to be exploited, and it doesn't work. Professor Galloway, you're trying to sell the women on careers that they don't, instead of you telling them the truth, the women don't actually want it. If they did, they wouldn't be trying to get maternity leave and sick leave and mental health days. Women sit up here and tell you they want to work, and then as soon as they get in the damn workplace, the first thing they do is try to get out of it. They use every trick in the book to try to get out of going to work. We need to stop the lying. And probably the most egregious thing I heard is the key to a healthy marriage is low expectations. So what are you really saying? You're saying that for the men, passion shouldn't matter. How can you have low expectations and high motivation? How can you have low expectations and high motivation? You tell the females they can have it all, but you're not telling them. You're telling the men have low expectations. The females can have it all. Dude, that doesn't work that way, because the men will be sacrificing much more. So they need to be passionate about it. This is why having this double cross culture that we've created means the men don't want to get married and don't want to have children, because you've told them that it's okay for the women to double cross them, that the men can put themselves on the hook with a marriage and kids, and that, okay, after that's done, all right, the woman can double cross you now. It's like, wait a minute. I've told you all about this before here. I went and made a purchase on a car here. And this thing is very expensive, and sitting there with the salesman, and girlfriend gets up to walk away for a minute, and the man sits up here and says, that's a nice truck you want. I said, yeah, I guess it is. She wants it. And he said, okay, I understand that. He said, now you do understand, you're going to be responsible. You're the one on the dotted line. You're going to be responsible for these payments, whether you two are still together in a month or not. And I'm like, yeah. Do you realize that no female in here has ever heard those words? What? You want to know why men are not trying to have kids today? Because no female in here has ever sat in a chair with somebody saying those words to her. Professor Galloway, do you hear the sound of my voice? Nobody sits the females down. There is no switching of the roles. What's your face there on Diary of a CEO, whoever little Sammy is there, chewing your fingernails? Dude, there is no women taking on that burden. The females making more than the men. That's a chick making $50,000 a year with an unemployed dude. She's not at the car dealership with them telling her, okay, now you understand, if you don't make this note, okay, he wants it, he needs the car. Okay, well, that's nice, ma'am, but if, just understand, you're the one whose name is on the line, so if you two break up next week, you still have to pay for this. This is not a conversation that females have. There's not a single female that you all can point me to or show me at anywhere. Somebody open up your social media and show me the woman who bought a G-Wagon and said, this is for my boo, and she was talking about a man. I'll wait.
Boy, what in the hell's the matter with you?
I'll wait. Go to your social media, go to your Instagram, show me a female who's bought a 6-figure vehicle for her man, and, oh, this is for boo. The only one you can name is damn me, Alicia Keys. And you got to be Swiss Beats? So let me get this straight. The man who don't need one. So you can get a female to buy you that if you're the man who doesn't even need it. Hell, don't even want it. I'm challenging any of you to go to your Facebook, Instagram, Twitter timelines, whatever. Show me one of your friends on social media, one of your female friends who has put herself on the line, on paper, to purchase a vehicle that was more than $80,000 for her man. I'll wait. I'll wait. Show me the female who's out there trying to overachieve like that. We're waiting. Show of, okay, for the females in the chat room, for every female in here who has purchased her man a car that's $80,000 a year or more, give me the car emoji in the chat room. I'm waiting. Don't tell me this is going to be the first time that we don't get any emojis. Oh, boy. I see some women laughing. I see some women with some laughing emojis. I don't see no women with no car emojis. Okay, I'm just checking. I see some women with some laughing emojis. I ain't seen car emoji yet. Yeah, where the boss hoes at? Ain't no boss hoes at the loan officer's desk. Ain't nothing but boss dudes when you get there. Okay, I thought all these boss broads was out here. Okay. I'll just leave that one hanging out there till they get around to it. Meanwhile, I'm just talking about $80,000 for a car. There's thousands of you listening to me right now. Most of you are men. There's a bunch of you fellas, forget buying a $70,000, $80,000 car. Some of you dudes up in here done bought $1,000,000 houses. Damn! I got fellas listening to me right now. Y'all done bought chicks a car. Y'all done paid for the car and the house. $250,000, $350,000, $450,000. That $80,000 would be the damn down payment. No GI Bill to help you. I ain't talking about dudes with no GI Bill. I'm talking about fellas who really got to hump it, really got to drag it. You don't get any extra help. I got fellas in here right now have paid for whole houses, cost $300,000 and $400,000 and $500,000 for a female who ain't bought you a pair of tennis shoes. What? And then folks are asking why you don't want to have kids. Nobody's looking at her and saying, excuse me, ma'am, if he paid for the house, shouldn't he get a pair of Nikes or something? I don't know about that right there. I say her buy an $80,000 car, that's unreasonable. But you can be on the hook for a $400,000 house. I want y'all to take a look at what men are actually told, not the pipe dreams. Not the fakery. I'm talking about what men are actually told. I got fellas in here paid for houses, paid for cars, paid for... Y'all done paid for houses, cars, shoes, BBLs. Damn! Think about this for a few moments. No, you stick around and feel the pain right quick. I want y'all to understand this ain't no joke. I've got fellas in here right now in Florida, right now in California. Man, forget a car. Them chicks at the strip club ain't paying for their own damn surgery. They're not paying for their own Porsches. They're not paying for their own surgeries. They're not paying for their butt lifts, their butt implants, their breast implants. They ain't paying for any of that fat relocation. I got fellas in here who footing the bill for that. Now I'm talking about I'd be real upset about that. Oh, if you had to do that like the dude who paid for Kim Kardashian's work. Oh, that has to be humiliating. I know I've been on the fellas tonight here. I'm going to get on the ladies here in just a minute, but that's got to be humiliating. Fellas, imagine you go off here. Man, imagine. Take a look at on your screens right there. Imagine you go off and go pay for this chick's butt implants. You done paid for this, that, and the other. And then you take a look up one day, she's on Instagram, she's on OnlyFans, swinging her implants around, swinging her BBL around. You done sat up here and took out a loan. You done took out a loan. It's been financed. You in the hole. And I mean, ain't a damn thing you can do except sit up here and watch her wiggle them butt cheeks on Instagram, on OnlyFans, and you paid for it. You have no access to it. None. You got the bill for it. And that's it. The only thing worse than buying a car would be going off and buying that. Then if you look on there one day and you see her with another dude,
And deal with it, nigga.
you done sat up here and sent her to Dr. Miami, and then you got to sit here and watch her swing that thing with another fella? Ain't no females in here paid for a man's surgery. Y'all ain't even paid for him to get hair implants.
Auntie, chill.
In the chat room, Royal, what you talking about? They've been doing that for over a decade. Royal talking about, I didn't know dudes was buying asses. Who you think paying for it? The fella's been doing that. Been doing that. Hell, and that's on the low end. Remember, Rob Kardashian was paying for all of Black China's work, remember? Remember when he was outing her? He was one talking about, yeah, and I'm the one paid for all of it. He paid for it so another dude can grip them overinflated jelly-filled cheeks. He paid for that, and another dude's gripping on it. And what I'm saying is these are the things that folks don't talk about and don't put that in its perspective. After you've gone off and done that, and somebody talking about having kids, you're still trying to recover from that BBL you paid for. And now they're talking about having kids? No, understand something right here. You done paid for a chick to get body work, and she wants you to pay for that specifically for the purposes so she can leave. Do you think that when other men take a look at that you can pay for plastic surgery and she leaves, you can get her pregnant, she'll have an abortion? You think anybody, you're just gonna ignore these circumstances and act like the men are just gonna be oblivious to it? We're gonna make a YouTube video and tell, okay, guys, put yourselves on the hook for it for the greater good. Whose greater good we talking about? No, the men don't want kids anymore because it's a bad deal. It's a bad deal. In the chat room, you need to update your files. Go to my posts tab on my channel page. It used to be the community tab, now it's the post tab. You can go to the post tab. Anybody talking about passport bros? There's a Latino dude just set them out. I was going to talk about that tonight, but I'm going to do that some other time. But there's a Latino dude set them out. I'm waiting for the Asian fellas to jump up next. Maybe once the society has felt enough pain from it, once it's had enough difficulty from it, once they've had an opportunity to do that, maybe once they see that the men are serious, when the men vote with their feet and their dollars. Because here's the thing, just understand something, the men built this society. We will have a lot easier time dealing with the difficulties than everybody else will. Men are accustomed to hardship. The females get together. Let me tell y'all something. Women, y'all ain't moving no appliances. When you get past the age of 45, 46, baby, y'all ain't moving no appliances. Y'all are not doing that. Stacey Dash looked crazy as hell with her girlfriend just trying to move a damn mattress. Forget a whole damn bed.
Nigga, please.
Women are not trying to move no refrigerators at the age of 46. 5'2", 120 pounds, trying to move a refrigerator. All you hear is that thing is going to be coming down in slow damn motion. She'll have time to sit there and look at it, her life flashing before her eyes with that refrigerator falling back on her. She gonna be like, when she see that thing coming down on her, it's her life flashing before her eyes. It's gonna be like in slow motion for a minute, right till it fall on top of her like a ton of bricks. You thought it was bad with the I've fallen and I can't get up. Wait till they start showing these commercials. Are you a single woman who doesn't need a man? You need Life Alert. How many times has your appliances fallen on you? That refrigerator, that stove, that sofa you got uppity with. Call Life Alert. I'm just saying. Imagine those commercials. Y'all remember the one with the little old lady there, I've fallen and I can't get up? Imagine this one here. All you see is a refrigerator with a woman's leg sticking out the side of it. Little high heel shoe on is wiggling a little bit. Oh, the refrigerator's on top of her. She can't move. She's trying to call 611, 411. She can't get her finger far enough to call 911. Can't get it far enough for that. And here's the killing thing. Here's the killing thing about it. Even if she had some other females there with her, what the hell they gonna do? Even if she had some other females with her, what the hell do you expect them to do? All they gonna do is either sit around and look at her, they gonna try to wiggle the refrigerator a little bit. Ain't none of them trying to heave-ho that damn thing up. This little 47-year-old and 57-year-old female, they ain't trying to heave-ho that damn thing up. All they're gonna do is go see if they can find a man. That's all that's gonna happen. If they can find one, you might live. If they can't, you're gonna have the silliest death in America. Oh, imagine being the first human being killed by an LG double wide. Damn! Imagine that, being asphyxiated under a Frigidaire. I don't need no man. Are you sure about that down there, Pam? You look like you could use one with that little leg over there fluttering. Looks like you could use one. You sure you don't? Hey, baby, your feet turning blue. You got one visible foot and it's turning blue. The circulation is cutting off. Are you sure? Now, look here, folks. I'm not interested in that any more than anybody else. I've got much more patience for kids than I do adults. Children don't know what they're doing. Adults are very much understanding of what they're doing. But I'm also going to tell you one thing here. Don't let folk guilt you into making a disadvantageous decision. We need to be honest about where things actually are, and more importantly, where things went wrong. Stop trying to lie to people. Stop trying to lie to men. Stop trying to gaslight. Stop trying to act like they should expect nothing. From here on in, you need to be telling the men what it is that they stand to gain. Gaslighting about married men live longer, that one ain't gonna fly. Let me go ahead and address that real quick. To the married fellas out there, half of you don't make it.
And deal with it, nigga.
But it's true. The simple fact of the matter is 50% of you don't make it. And of the 50% of you who can keep her from walking out, you stay and you get tormented. Happily married is an urban myth. You got females running around and they don't talk about how great the man is. The only thing they talk about is how great the financial benefits they get are, but they're not really hyping up him. The married men, they talk to us. They're not thrilled. They're not stoked about it. They ain't psyched. And the crazy part about it is the ones who do get in that situation, you usually with a chick that didn't nobody else want. There wasn't real super hard competition. Y'all are taking somebody's cast off hose somewhere. Can we just be real? Come on, man. Fellas today have to sit up here and blindfold themselves and hold their nose and pull the lever. Okay, let me go and get down this aisle here. Don't ask any questions on the subject of not wanting to have kids anymore. Fellas, if your wife had to tattoo her body count on her forehead, her real body count, not the one you guessed she got. If your wife had to tattoo her real body count on her forehead, how many of you fellas would ever want to be seen in public with her again? Damn! Now, there's the reality. If you got a female over the age of 25, how many of you would want her actual body count tattooed on her forehead? If every woman in the world had to tattoo her body count on her forehead, how many of you would actually want to be with the woman you with anymore? But most men don't. Most men don't even ask those questions. Most men do not do any sort of investigation about that. Most men, they singing that song, I Don't Want to Know. And then he's shocked and surprised that she could wake you up with divorce papers one morning. Because you don't even actually know who you're with. You just listen to somebody talking about, well, go ahead and get married. And then they're going to blame you if the marriage doesn't work. Now, there's the other thing. Even as the man, you're going to get blamed if the marriage doesn't work. Even if she cheats on you, even if she has a baby by somebody else, they're going to say the problem was you. They're not going to say the problem was her. The problem is you no matter what happens. That's what it means to be married today in America. Let's call it for what it is. If you didn't get lucky, that's what it means to be married. It means grabbing somebody's leftover, run over chick here unless you're a lucky guy. If you are lucky and you just got some chick who you were in the right place at the right time, or you had the suitable viability that you have the pick of the litter, but that's the top 10%. For everybody else, all you guys out here, man, it's y'all don't want niggas sitting up here grabbing your wife's freak Nick tape.
And deal with it, nigga.
You fellas out here who are the ones who claim you happily married, bruh, you don't want nobody digging through the crates to go grab your wife's VHS tape from Freak Nick 97? You don't really want that? Slut Walk 2015? You don't. I was there. I was there for Amber Rose's first Slut Walk. Y'all know that. I got it on video. I was right there. Hundreds of females. I was right there. Not Woodstock, not Freaknik, Los Angeles. I was there for Freaknik. I was there for Slut Walk 1, didn't go Slut Walk 2. And I'm like, okay. Okay. You got fellas here right now. I'm like, bro, if he had to tattoo that damn number on her head, how the hell you happy with this? What the hell benefit you get? How can you be proud knowing how many fingerprints are on her? And you're paying much more than anybody else is. This chick got a body count in the dozens by a bunch of dudes who didn't buy her a snow cone and you're buying a house and taking care of some kids. No. Back the car up. Fellas, I'm just saying. Some of y'all got chicks with sex tapes. Some of y'all got, and I shouldn't say some of you. If you are a male under the age of 30, your chick is on video. There's footage of her somewhere. That's why they don't want to talk about their exes. You see some fellow with neck tattoos. Oh, you know that girl is in high definition somewhere. Y'all know it. You gonna mess around one of these evenings and go to Pornhub or some amateur porn site, and there she gonna be. You're gonna rifle through enough of those videos on one of them amateur porn sites, and I'll be damned, there your woman is. You gonna be in the shower trying to take a bath with your clothes on. Okay, but we're going to make a wife out of them. And I'm like, okay, how many of you fellas are overlooking that one? Stop faking and fronting. There's a bunch of y'all talking, I got a chick, I got a wife. Okay, and I'm like, bruh, somebody's got the pimples on her butt cheeks somewhere. And then there's the ones who know about it. Professor Galloway didn't come from the POV sex generation. The only chick who had a porn tape back then was Pamela Anderson. Today, this is why these girls, fellas, you need to check out your chick and ask about who she been with. You see 2 or 3 of them dudes, once you see them, it's like, oh, wait a minute, I know this nigga got the camera turned on. She's gonna try to make it seem like everybody she was with was Russell Wilson and Carlton Banks. Then you're gonna see about 3 or 4 futures up in there. It's like, oh Lord. Yeah, your chick was at the freak off. Now she's married? Think about that for a few moments. Cassie is married to that dude, Alex Fine. Bruh, your chick was literally doing freak offs for a decade. Diddy was at the party telling her, yeah, I'm telling them folks, stop passing your sex video around. Alex, really? Really? That was the one you chose to marry? How do you retain your manhood knowing that there's some dude out there watching your chick wiggle and jiggle as we speak? What part of masculinity harbors that? Tell me where the desire to have children comes from under those circumstances. And most of you fellas in here right now, most of you, your chick is on video somewhere. Hell, there's a couple of you we can show it to. In the 21st century. Right now. You talking about you happily married. You saw what the hell that did to Kanye West. Kanye thought he was going to hold strong. Man, you can't hold strong when another man's got the ultimate damn trump card on you. It's like, hey, bruh, I was flattening your broad out. Wanna see? No, I'm not trying to be salacious right now. What I'm saying is, okay, have kids under these circumstances. How many degrees, Professor Galloway, what kind of character is, how many degrees, how financially successful does a woman need to be to erase that? Professor Galloway wasn't filtering through no Sexy Reds and Nicki Minaj's. He wasn't doing that. In the chat room, David said, how would you know before it's too late? Nigga, do your due diligence. Y'all fellas be so starved for sex is the problem. That's why these men can sit up here and tell y'all, well, do this and you can get some sex. Fellas are so, the number one reason why a male shouldn't be starved for sex, even if it requires him to be by himself, is so that he makes it a priority to do his due diligence. And if you are with a female who will not allow you to do your due diligence, you already know what the answer is. You're supposed to be finding out about her exes. You're supposed to question everything. She tell you that she moved to your city. Where will you come from? Let me tell y'all something, fellas. If you live in damn me, Cleveland, Ohio, and you, hey baby, where you from? I'm from LA. LA? Who the hell moves from LA to come to Cleveland? Hey baby, where you from originally? New York. Who the hell leaves New York to come to Wichita, Kansas? Hey, baby, where you from? Atlanta? Who the hell leaves Atlanta to go to damn me, Fargo? Who does that? Nigga, you living in Oklahoma City with a chick who came down from Chicago. You living in Little Rock with a chick who done moved from D.C. Wait a minute, that don't make no damn sense. What the hell? Who the hell does that? Everybody in Little Rock trying to get out. She's the only one from a big city trying to get in. Nigga, don't you see she on the run? And she knows your little square lame ass, well, you just worry whether you can get some sex. You ain't gonna ask no questions. You're so thrilled and so grateful that you won't be alone tonight. You don't care where you picked her up from. Okay, you didn't do your due diligence and she's hoping you're so desperate for sex that you won't do any due diligence. You're not going to ask her why she's there, who she been with. Ask for confirmation. Don't settle for she ain't got no social media. I don't have any social media. Wouldn't you a lie? She's tried to scrub her trail. She's tried to scrub her history and clean up her tracks. Men in 2024 cannot afford to be so naive. And you're not naive, you're just willfully ignorant. Okay, just understand, willfully ignorant usually comes with some STDs or a sex video.
Nigga, please.
That's what willfully ignorant comes with. You can try to be willfully ignorant, just understand somebody out there got hard evidence. It's out there somewhere. You better ask those questions before one of them bones from one of them skeletons come falling out the closet. Fellas hear things that you know are not correct, or at least you suspect aren't, or you don't even have enough information. Jason, how do you know? Hey, fellas, go through your chick's phone and take a look at her music playlist. She got Tank, she got Lil Wayne, she got Cardi B, she got Sexy Red, she got Nicki Minaj, and she telling you that she's only slept with 3 dudes?
And deal with it, nigga.
Bruh. Take a look at your female's playlist on her phone. And wait a minute, does this look like a virgin's playlist here? She got Sukihana. She got Suki Hana on her playlist, and you talking about, oh, don't worry, Jason, I got a good one. Okay. Bruh, do you see what she plays, what she gravitates to? Do you see what she's doing? Fellas are willfully ignorant because women understand that most men are just desperate for sex because they've been starved. They're one of the guys on the outside looking in. And he's not going to do any real due diligence because he's so desperate. When they do meet somebody who sits up here and asks a bunch of questions, just please believe me. If you actually ask questions, you'll either get the right answers or you'll hear things that don't add up. And then she starts hemming and hawing and looking guilty. Fellas, you already know. You already know. Just assume that that's what the situation is. If you ask the questions, the truth gonna come out. She jumped from one city to another. The playlist on that phone is XXX rated. Happily married. Nigga, who you fooling? Jason, why you going there with it? Because somebody got to. The fellas who don't want to have kids are looking at the fellas out there who got their asses played. Most married men today are not getting the caliber of freaky that she was before she married you. And I said that.
And deal with it, nigga.
But it's true. I'm not going on a tangent right now. I'm fleshing this out. You want to know why they don't want to have kids, brother? She's not as freaky with you as she was with the dudes she was with before you. She got a video out there, but she telling you what she ain't gonna do with you. She got a whole subsection on X videos and telling you what she doesn't want to do. Now, she wasn't tired when she was with them 3 niggas on video. She wasn't tired with them, but you working and buying a house. I've been watching kids and bruh, you're not getting the same level of freaky that she was giving somebody else. You're not. You're not, but it's true. Oh, do I got to read the mail right quick? Let me read the mail. Let me go ahead and rummage through here right quick. Oh, let me see if I can find the mail catalog over here. All right. Ladies, I got to read the mail right quick. Got to make a mail drop right quick. You want to know why it is that so many females start going to church? Damn! There's a bunch of you fellas in here think she done got saved and sanctified. Some of y'all like, well, that's a good sign. Well, Jason, even if she was bad, she going to church here now.
Auntie, chill.
Man, she going to church and then telling you she don't want to have sex no more. So, I'm trying to get my life right. Wait a minute, let me get this straight now. Now, before you married me, it was Sodom and Gomorrah. So as you with me, now we playing Kenny Copeland. Oh boy, I think I just upset some dudes up in here tonight. Okay. All right. Just saying. There's some fellas in here. I'm talking about, boy, you done fell for it. She got the kids. She going to church. She got a after school vocation, anything and everything. Anything and everything to stiff arm you when you start coming around the corner. She doing anything and everything to hold you at bay. He ain't made the connection yet. Talking about all the types of different sex she don't do no mo. Some of these fellas fell for that. No, I'm opening this up right now because, by the way, is that what you thought you were having a wife and kids with? That's what you're doing. You're getting less than everybody else. You're paying more than any other man is paid and getting less than he got. She had no problem doing all this other stuff for these other fellas over here. She gets you. She wants you to have some kids so you can have less. Now she's going to tell you she tired from taking care of the kids and we got Bible study on Wednesday. And she's sitting in Bible study snoring. She's at the revival out like a light and snoring, but come home with you and busy. Oh, man. Jason, are you really going to hurt these fellas' feelings tonight? They deserve it. Fellas, she's busy. She's busy. You think you got a career woman. No, you don't. You don't have a career woman. She just realizes going to work keeps her away from you. So you pay the bills. You take care of everything. But she realizes that even if she just works part-time, hell, she can tell you she don't want no sex while it's part-time. Okay, leave me alone. I'm busy bringing the kids, part-time job, bull job. Now, she married you and then wants to go see her family all the damn time. Now, she's married you, but she wants to go see her family all the time. And as most of you married men fell for that. She's married you, but she wants to go see the family all the damn time. Busy. I gotta take care of here. Did you fellas ever realize, did you guys ever even consider that maybe, just maybe, your so-called career woman has the job and has the kids because it puts the financial burden on you, and those are her excuses for not really giving you a bunch of her time? How many of you married men in here realize that now that you 8 years into the mortgage? Damn! Bunch of you fellas now, you 8 years down the line into the damn mortgage. And tonight was the first time that it's actually clicked for you. By the way, yes, she is busy a lot, isn't she? Well, I mean, I thought she just really liked her job. Man, you better ask what the hell she was saying about her job before she got with you, before she married you. She was talking about how much she hates the damn job. As soon as she gets married, it's like, oh, okay, let me get some kids and give me a little part-time job over here. So first, they try to stay home. It's like, okay, when you be badgering too much, oh, I got to get to work. Oh, I need a PhD. Oh, I got some vocations. Oh, I'm joining the Kiwanis Club and the Lions Club. And oh, let me join the sorority. Baby, you 50 years old. Whole bunch of fellas here just think that's natural. I mean, well, Jaden, she said that word. I can believe that right there. Fellas, you need to start asking yourselves a question. If you were Michael B. Jordan, what? Would this be the way things would be going? Ask yourselves that. If you were Michael B. Jordan, if you were Idris Elba, is this how things would be going? Is this what the situation would be? Would she be making time for revival? When you tell me if your schedule would still look the same. See, there's a whole bunch of fellas out here that got themselves into a bind, and now they're trying to sell everybody else on it. Then they're shocked when everybody else doesn't want to go along with it. Maybe you just got yourself into a bind. And now you're redefining your situation as being a benefit. And you're looking at the fellows who are like, yeah, so I don't know if I want to make any permanent attachments here, man. You know how I really feel sorry for you poor dumb saps out there who had a kid by the chick with the sex video?
Damn! Auntie, chill!
Why don't men want kids anymore? Yeah, because we seen some of you niggas got kids by the chick with the sex video. I'm talking about a bunch of you. You got kids, you married. No, don't damn this right here. There's a whole bunch of fellas in here. Everybody gonna act like it's not them now. Everybody's gonna act like it's not them now. Now they're gonna act like it's somebody else. Every fella in here who's married and got kids, now he's gonna act like that's somebody else. Jason, my baby mama would never do that there. My wife would never do that, Jason. You lied on him. That would never happen. Then you're wrong. You don't know that. You don't know everything, Jason. Bunch of fellas in here listening to me live or recorded. I mean, you done got kids with her. Kids, a mortgage, and somewhere hanging out there in the ether, somewhere in the netherworld, somewhere in the darkest recesses of your mind, is dangling. You hoping you're not going to end up like Joe Smith? I did that program on Joe Smith for a reason. I did it on him for a reason because, by the way, do y'all think his wife is getting the level of freaky that Mr. Marcus got?
Nigga, please.
I'm just saying. He's done married her. He got the house. By the way, do you think he's getting the level of freaky that Mr. Marcus got? There's a reason why the men of today are not trying to have kids like that anymore. There's a reason for it. There's a reason for it, and attempting to ignore it or deny it is not going to make it any better. Everybody's worried about the population dropping. I'm letting you know right now, it's just getting started. Until the options actually get substantially better and the circumstances and the risks are seriously diminished, until that happens, no, just let that keep going. It's just going to keep dropping like a stone. The risks outweigh the benefits. The risks outweigh the benefits for men. So what you're going to have now is a bunch of chicks who are going to sit up here and get pregnant by whoever or wherever and move in with their girlfriends until they start driving each other crazy. And as for the men, well, when the circumstances get better, maybe they'll spin the block, or maybe not. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up here. If you are new here to the business, welcome to the program that all your favorite YouTubers love to hate watch. Click that red subscribe button. Click that yellow notification bell. Join us each and every time that we're here. If you haven't joined our Patreon, the link is in the description. Have some things upcoming over there as well. I've talked to a few of you about it, so we're just getting started. We'll see how things go here. Keep your eyes and your ears open. I want to thank all of you for tuning in to tonight's program. Thank you for watching live or recorded. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing. And this concludes tonight's broadcast of The Business. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, Mr. Jason Black. And until next time, my brothers and my sisters from around the world, remember, handle your business or your business will handle you.